Nation. We're back.
All right, we're back. Welcome back to another episode of Fire the Cannon.
All right, I'm Megan.
I'm Rocky.
And we're Fire the Cannon, y'all. All right. Well, we've got a lot to catch up on.
Yes.
We'll do just a quick little, if you guys missed it for the podcast on Monday, we're going to do a quick chat about the previous game against ULM. Of course, we're going to be looking forward to Mississippi State. Do the Dogs have any kind of chance in this matchup?
I mean,
here?
they're coming to Austin, so that gives them a chance.
Absolutely. Got to play the game.
Yeah.
We're going to talk a little bit about Texas. Is Texas SEC ready? That's a hotly debated content there. So we're going to talk about that a little bit.
Right.
Of course, we've got stories from around sports, around Texas, and then a few fun things thrown in there too. So
college football week 5,
absolutely.
NFL week 4.
Absolutely.
Lots that we'll make our picks again against the spread. I will let you know again which upsets that you gotta pick. Don't put real American dollars on them, even though last week you would have won money if you took my picks, but that's okay. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. All right, Megan. So we have a lot going on. So let's catch up real quick. Tomorrow is my birthday.
Yes.
And I have a big birthday tomorrow. So I'm excited. So what I've been doing is, with the help of Richard and my son and everybody, is turning my house into a disco. And so I'm like moving furniture out and just putting up all these lights. And yeah, it's going to be, I just want my house to be just, so when
it's gonna be crazy.
It's gonna be fun.
You put a lot of work in so far.
I have.
Can I share the theme with everybody? I mean, I know it's disco. Yeah. So you were telling me, you're like, oh, I want it to be like a 70s theme, kind of a disco party. You were like, Studio 54. It's like, you mean Studio 50, right? Because it's your big 50, man. That's a big deal. Right? That's amazing. That's amazing.
I wasn't going to say the age, but that's okay.
Whatever. You're incredible and you're rocking it.
That's fine.
No, I'm just saying. Like,
so I have a big birthday party tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. I have a DJ and a bartender and one of our friends who's a really great chef. She's coming to cook a bunch of good food.
Yeah.
And I'm just really excited.
It's going to be off the chain. It's going to be fun.
It's going to be fun. Yeah, it's going to be fun. I'm excited.
Do you have your outfit picked out?
Yeah, yes. And I got my nails done today. I don't know if you can see, but they're like disco balls and retro waves.
There's something to be said for you. Like, you take a theme to extreme.
Yes.
In a great way.
Yes. So awesome. I'm going to turn my house into Studio 50, disco.
It's going to be amazing.
Yeah. And the DJ has a great playlist. So we're going to go through the decades of good, fun music, all 5 decades of great music. So it should be fun.
Yeah.
And then it's going to be fun. I'm excited. It's a lot of work. And I still have like a long list of things.
But
I just went and picked up the cookies and she killed it. She killed the cookies. They're so cute.
It's going to be a blast. Like I said, you take a theme, you take it to extreme, and like, you don't do anything small. It's amazing.
No.
I'd say go big or go home, but you're going big while you're at home.
I go big and go home.
Yeah, exactly. So no, it's going to be a good time. That'll be a lot of fun. So if we're dragging a little bit on Saturday for the game.
No, we'll be ready to go.
You will.
No,
I gotta be up.
All right. So what do you have, Megan, going on? I know you're always going.
Yeah, not much. I mean, really, it's just tailgate stuff and getting ready for your party and making sure.
Do you have your outfit?
If I can get into my storage. Like, my storage is so far away.
I thought you were about to say if I can get into my outfit.
No. If I can get into my storage, which is out in like Liberty Hill. I live in South Boston.
You're not going to have time to go all the way out to Liberty Hill.
You don't know my life.
I mean, but with gas, you might as well just go to the little thrift store or party store and grab something.
But the thing is, I have this amazing Farrah Fawcett wig that like fits really well.
But gas alone, you could.
It'll be all right. So I could take the motorcycle out there, pick it up with a backpack. So no, anyway,
very Charlie's Angels of you.
Yeah, right? Get my Farrah hair on the motorcycle. But if I have time, I'll run out and do that. But if not, like, I'm pretty good at improvising. I've got a backup plan.
Good.
Maybe a little bit of theme going on. Obviously, your theme, disco. But
disco is the thing.
But I might be able to incorporate some burnt orange in there because I feel like burnt orange is a very 70s color. Right?
Yes, like oranges and browns.
Yeah.
Except my party is pinks and purples and teals and greens
I can
gold and silver. Mine's pretty gaudy.
So no, it'll be fun.
But yeah, everyone's dressing up. It'll be kind of fun. The best thing is my cousin, who is this badass dude. He's so funny. He's like, hey, cuz, I'm going to be out of my element in my costume. I'm like, yes, that's what I want.
Listen, I love a good costume party.
He's like, I'm going to be out of my element. I'm like, yes, I love it. I want people to get a little uncomfortable. That's really fun. Or just, challenge themselves, have a little fun with the costume.
I love me a good theme party. I've had some of my birthday themes have been, I did have a white trash 80s bash or a white trash bash.
I don't know if we can say that anymore, right?
Well, I can because I'm white as hell.
I don't know. Okay.
So I had that. I definitely did a 70s theme, but it was slightly more aggressive than yours. Like yours is wholesome, family friendly. Mine was like 70s porn party. So everybody like a roller girl showed up, and
That's
like,
awesome.
It was amazing. It was a good time. So yeah, I'm all about people that are out of their element in costumes, but still putting the effort in to like, it's fun to watch people show up and dress out and like,
it is fun.
Yeah.
Hey, CB, what's up? Yeah, originally Studio 54, but since it's my 50th birthday, Megan's like, it should be Studio 50. I'm like, yeah, it is. And that's pretty cool. Discoteca. Yeah, it will turn into a discoteca by the 11 o'clock hour of the playlist.
Absolutely.
The playlist shifts a bit.
Kids got to go home.
It's going to be fun. They're not like us. All right. So today, again, like you said, we're going to talk about, is Texas SEC ready? Not just Texas football team, but the entire program, the athletics, academics. Are they SEC ready?
Yeah.
It seems funny to say academics and SEC, right? But we're going to talk about it.
Yeah.
And then we'll, like we said, we'll recap ULM just a minute before we preview Mississippi State.
Yep.
A lot happening. First home game of the season as in SEC play.
Yep.
All right.
You excited about this? Like, okay. So we've talked about the schedule a little bit before, and I love this narrative. Right before Texas got to the SEC, it was there's no easy games. The SEC schedule is the hardest out there.
Mhm.
It's a grind. Oh, they cannibalize each other. Well, now that Texas is here, and granted, they changed the format a little bit. Oh, Texas got a cakewalk, easiest schedule ever, right?
Yeah.
So
I mean, they've not all played each other anyway before.
No, and
they still took turns playing each other.
There were the divisions, right?
Right.
And look, I can appreciate a nuanced conversation. Like, we know that that's not what Twitter is for necessarily, but I can appreciate that two things can be true, right?
Yeah.
The SEC is a grind, and any game, any team can win pretty much at any given moment.
Mm-hmm.
But also Texas did get a favorable schedule. I won't say easy, I'll say favorable.
But what's funny is the people complaining about the schedule are the ones that are on our schedule, and it's like a self-own to be like, you have an easy schedule. You mean because we play you?
Because we play you, right? No, so I think it's definitely going to be. I will say this:
it's a grind.
It is a grind, but I will say coming into this, Texas's schedule definitely lines up nicely, right?
Yes.
We had Michigan, which again, Michigan was scheduled something like 10 years in advance. So it was fortunate for Texas in the sense that we got them coming off of a national championship, but we got a very different team in Michigan that won the national championship.
Well, USC got the national championship defending team.
So, right. So,
not really.
So other than that, I mean, Texas, I feel like they're easing into the schedule. It couldn't have been, and I know some of this is luck, right? But it couldn't have been set up better for Texas. You start with Colorado State, and you get Michigan, where Texas is dominant, and then you come into UTSA, and then ULM. It feels like we're kind of gaining steam. And then as we go into our first SEC game,
we got the worst.
Of course, we got Mississippi State, and look, we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I've got to appreciate how this is lining up for Texas and being SEC ready. So you brought a few fun facts. Let's compare. Is Texas SEC ready?
All right. Well, let's start with, let's broader picture, university picture, right? So the University of Texas, let's see, at UT Austin just posted, they are the number one public university in Texas.
Mm-hmm. And number 7 in the nation.
And number 7 in the nation, right? And then as far as SEC academics of all the SEC schools, number 1, Vandy private school, number 2, tied Texas, Florida.
Right.
So Texas is academically at the top of the SEC, right? And so we knew that going in, that some of the schools aren't, they're not about, they don't do school, they don't do books. They all get an education, but some are ranked higher, value education a little more, or have, you leave your paper means a little bit more if you're not a diploma mill, or, it depends what your majors can be, right? In Texas, you still have to have a real major. So anyway, that's so when Texas SEC ready, academically, they're ready for any conference. I mean, they can compete in the Big Ten academically. Yeah. They can compete, Texas SEC ready academically for sure.
But there's more to it than that, right? Like, of course, we're talking sports. That's what we're getting into. So I love the argument where, like, we know a lot of this is about football, right? Oh, mm-hmm. Texas. And my favorite thing is this actually came up in a group chat, and I want to throw out a shout out to that live Twitter Spaces, the burnt orange SEC or the SEC section. So it's like section, right? SEC.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Cody and Catherine run that. So always a fun space. If you guys get a chance, jump in there. But the most recent one that they hosted had a lot of other SEC fans kind of jumping in. And for the most part, it was really cool. But there were just these few fans in there that insists, like, they've got it stuck in their brain that Texas football is the Texas football of 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Okay.
Right. The amount of times, just the condescension that people were saying, oh, Texas isn't, you think you're SEC ready, but you don't really understand what it's like to play in front of, hundreds of thousands of people like every game. I'm like, honey, we're the ones that sell out y'all's stadium, no matter what. Like,
and Texas had the biggest crowd this weekend for a non-SEC game.
And again, shout out to the Texas fans for showing up. If you and again, it's been a challenge in years past, but if you had told me that ULM would have the 5th largest crowd in Texas football history, I don't know that I would have believed that, right? But the fans are ready. There's excitement in the air. This team is looking good. They're winning in the way that they're supposed to win, right? Air quotes, supposed to win.
Right.
They're winning big in the games that they're supposed to win big. They're handling business on the road so far. Again, not terribly tested as far as amount of times that we've played on the road, but that Michigan win, you still got to count it. That's a tough place to play. So yeah, I mean, the excitement's high. Fans are stoked. And, you have to kind of pause and tell these guys, look, I understand, like we talk about our Longhorn PTSD a little bit. I feel like some of these SEC teams they've been in the SEC so long, they get kind of brainwashed and assume that nobody knows how to play football outside of the SEC.
Right.
Like, we're still Texas, man. We still understand the game of football. And my hope is, look, you guys are judging Texas. These fans are judging Texas on where we were at 10 years ago, 5 years ago. I hope you keep doing that.
Texas has been a punchline.
We were on this struggle bus for a minute.
Yeah.
But even then, we were still playing in front of, Texas was still a conversation, still a topic, still a point of contention for a lot of people, right? But I hope that these teams, these SEC brainwash, like nobody knows how to play football if you haven't been in the SEC forever. I hope these folks keep thinking that we're 5 years ago Texas.
Right.
Because that is, for me, that would be the best way for them to come into our house and for us to go to theirs. And they'll be like, oh shit, this Texas is the real deal. Right. So I think it's kind of funny when you talk about it. You look at the SEC fans, like, we know how to play football, y'all. And again, we're getting back. We're coming back. But
it's coming.
To assume that nobody outside of the SEC understands what the game of football is just a crazy mentality to me.
Yeah. The narrative shifts quickly, right? Like we said a minute ago, oh, it's a grind. Also, you got the easiest schedule, or the things shift, like, oh, well, we just beat each other up, or when they don't score 50 points, it's because we have big defense. But if Texas, if other teams don't score 50 points because y'all have a bad offense, right? So the narrative shifts always, every fan base, and as
it does with Texas all the time.
I will still not cheer for other SEC teams, and I'm not going to shout SEC and all that. Anyway, but let's take it one by one. Yep. So let's talk about the women's sports just briefly. Like, are they SEC ready? Volleyball, like, back-to-back national champions.
Yeah.
Of course, they've started a little rough this season as a rebuilding, which they've the last few years started off, but they've gone to the best competition already.
Right.
And so the volleyball team, I mean, nothing tells us they're not going to be on track by the time conference play and gets going. Softball, competing in the top level, ranked number 1 in the year last year.
Women's College World Series last year. Yeah.
Right. So softball, and the recruiting classes look great. Coach White has done a great job recruiting, developing. The staff is consistent. So there's nothing to say that they won't come into the conference ready to go. Basketball, top 5-10 program, consistently competing at an Elite 8 level. Of course, some of the best teams in the country are in the SEC. The Gamecocks, who never lose.
Yeah.
LSU, who still stays strong. Like, there's some great teams in the SEC for basketball.
Yeah.
So, but Texas will be competitive.
Yeah.
And then, of course, golf, tennis, soccer, all these other teams.
Always in the mix for national
championships.
championships.
Always in the mix.
Yeah.
Winning programs. So that tells us the women are ready, right? Rowing, not national championships over and over. Like, the women are ready.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the men, and we'll hit football in a minute. But let's say, like, baseball, right? You're the baseball person. Look, like last year, the World Series, it was like the who's who of SEC, right? What are you as the baseball person going into the SEC? Are they ready?
Yeah. Look, if you had asked me this question prior to the greatest coaching heist of all time, yeah, let's just say there were some concerns, right? Just with the direction that the program was going, and it felt like Texas baseball had kind of stagnated.
Texas wasn't RGV, Rio Grande Valley ready.
Right. Right. And considering that, the prestige and the history of Texas baseball, most times at Omaha, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, there was some concerns. The SEC is an incredible baseball conference. I would almost argue, and this is going to probably piss a lot of people off, but I would almost argue that SEC is more of a baseball conference than it is a football conference.
Deeper.
Deeper. And that's not saying like, oh, the SEC isn't a football conference. Right. But yeah, I mean, you look at the like you mentioned, the College World Series last year. You had Tennessee, you had A&M, you had Vandy's always in it. Arkansas is in the mix a lot lately. It is
Tennessee just won the championship.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a heavy baseball conference, and there were some concerns. Now, watching in the short amount of time, Schloss hasn't coached a single game at Texas yet. Right. And so seeing him come in and all of a sudden the momentum that shifted and the attitude around around the office, around the program itself, it feels like it's been injected with hope, at least for me. I'm like, man, okay, I don't think Texas is going to come in bashing down anybody's door in the SEC this particular year, but I think we're going to be a lot better off than had we not made a coaching change. And that's, that sucks to say. I was a big David Pierce person and appreciated all he did, but like I had mentioned, the program had kind of stagnated, right? And watching Schloss come in, getting this, just re-energizing the program, he's been on a freaking recruiting hot streak. Texas, I believe now has 8 or 9 commits that
for 2026.
Yeah, that all happened
to back.
Yeah, 25 and 26. Yeah. Boom, 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 right back to back. And these are top prospects. We had A&M flip.
A bunch of left-handed pitchers.
We need pitching though. Yep. And that's the thing we talked about all last season is the bullpen for Texas was questionable. It was rough at times, right? And you never knew what you were getting game to game.
Which was such a flip from even the year before where pitching was like holding them in a game.
Right.
And then a year later, pitching was losing the
games. Yeah. So that is a very long-winded way of me saying, do I feel that Texas is SEC ready for baseball? I feel like we're getting there. I feel like the program as a whole, historically, absolutely. The program as a whole knows what good baseball is about. They know how to win. They know how to get to Omaha. Recently, we haven't been on such a hot streak, but with this change and with the reinvigoration of the program, I feel like we're going to see some changes. And I think Texas is going to be competitive. Again, I think this first year under Schloss, we're going to see some losses that maybe we shouldn't quite lose where we think we need to be. Games that in the future we'll definitely win, right? But I think Texas is going to surprise some people too. I think there's going to be a pretty big jump from the product we saw on the field last year to this year. So excited for that.
All right. So baseball's on track with the coach, with the right coach who has won in the SEC already at A&M. Mm-hmm. So hopefully he has an understanding of the parks and the coaches and what roster he needs to have to win in the SEC. It may not be the first year, but he will build a program.
Yeah, it doesn't matter where Schlossnagle is coaching. The man understands baseball, and he. Again, this is not a knock on TCU's program, but TCU doesn't have the resources that schools like Texas, schools like A&M have. And he was highly successful at TCU, turned A&M around with a quickness when he got there.
Right.
So I'm expecting with the resources that he's going to be given, I highly believe that he's going to have an open checkbook. I think we're going to see a quick turnaround with Texas.
Right. And, we've heard when Coach Schloss was at A&M, he didn't necessarily have all the backing but from the administration that he would have hoped for. And we know as being, buddies, longtime buddies with CDC. Besties with CDC. The odds are that they're going to work together to build that program.
Absolutely.
All right. Basketball, men's basketball. We said women's basketball at Elite 8 level, top recruiting classes. They're on track. They're hosting this weekend. Women, I forgot to say, the #1 player in the country. So the men's basketball, we know with Coach Rodney Terry, he has recruited at a really high level.
Yeah.
Last year, there were some struggles, some weird losses, but overall, they competed well in the Big 12. The SEC, the Big 12 is the best. Last year, they were the best basketball conference. Yeah. So there are good teams in the SEC. We'll see how they do, but they have a good shot of coming in and competing
I agree.
this year
I
in
agree.
the men's basketball. All right, so let's talk football, the big money maker. Okay, so this is I put together. This is a couple of the top highlights of some tweets that show, like, is Texas SEC ready? Let's look at what some of these tweets that say. So overall, we know, well, they're number one in the country right now. 6 of the 7 or so top 10 teams in the country are SEC. Texas is number one. You can debate whether or not they deserve to be, but even in the conversation of number one, pretty good, pretty SEC ready.
Yeah.
Overall, they apparently have the best resume. All right, so let's look here. So they have the best defense at getting stops. They have the best points per drive offensively, best scoring efficiency offensively, and yards after catch, number one in the SEC. That went fast.
Yeah.
All right, but so let's talk about those. Texas has elite offense and defense. Can you believe it?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something.
4 weeks in.
Yeah, of course. But that's something that we've talked about, throughout watching Sark as he's building this program. Everything's been intentional. We mentioned this on the podcast on Monday. Everything has been incredibly intentional. He came in with a plan. He was very clear about what his plan is. Like, look, I've got to get a hold on my personnel, who my players are. I've got to get my guys in here. Then we've got to get through the fundamentals. We have to understand just the basics of football, because some of that was lacking a little bit with the previous teams. And then once they've got the fundamentals down, Sark talks, okay, then we're going to start getting the X's and O's. They're going to start learning the plays. And he said his final piece of that is, when they understand the why, when the why comes naturally and they understand why they're doing what they're doing, and that's an easy thing for them, he goes, that's when we're really functioning on a high level and having a high level of success. And he mentioned that in his presser earlier on in this week, that, Texas, the guys are getting the why. The players are understanding the why, and they're able to communicate that with other players. Like, this is a player-led team at this point. So, yeah, I think watching the development as it's come through, the offense and the defense. Like, we know that Sark is an offensively minded coach, but he's put the right pieces in, he's put the right team together, and he's got the right guys in recruiting. And the team has now had enough time under Coach Sark and his staff to get the why on both offense and defense. And that, man, it is a beautiful thing to watch Texas football when it is performing the way, on a level that we know it is capable of performing.
Right. So you mentioned, like, as he's going through teaching the scheme, teaching the plan, also during this time, these 3.5, 4 years, he has been developing and recruiting his players, right, for his scheme, to fit his scheme.
Right.
The speed, the big guys on the line, the mobile, versatile. He uses the word versatile all day. Not like the running backs are versatile, the DBs are versatile. Everybody, he recruits for versatility. He recruits for strength and speed, and speed, right? So he's in what he dreams that his team could be one day. Like he said, oh, we anticipated this. We expected pretty much, they didn't use the word expected, but we anticipated to be number one in the country. Like, that was the plan, right? And not that he said number one doesn't mean anything in week 4, but that's where they expected to be, right? That was the plan. So when you have like you just mentioned, he works really well with the defensive side of the ball. They're very complementary of each other. And then special teams struggling a little bit overall compared to the success they had last year. Not so much the kicking, but the punting return game, that's still up in the air. We want more from that. But the way the offense and the defense complement each other so well, that takes years of building a complete program.
Right. No, agreed. I love that word, complementary, because that really is how Texas is gelling right now, how they're working together right now. It's complementary football. And just like you said, we haven't seen that so much in the past. It's been we've got these great skill position players, but the O-line was lacking a little bit, or the D-line's just got some holes in it, or our fundamentals, our basics, the unglorified positions aren't quite getting it done, and that makes it hard for everybody else. God bless Sam Ehlinger for what he went through. You know what I mean? Yeah. Great quarterback, but the kid was not working with a full deck, in my opinion. And that's not being ugly. That's just facts right there. Right. So yeah, I think it's exciting to watch. Let's talk a little bit about the ULM game.
Well, first, let's see if the fans are SEC ready first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Before we move on, let's see. Texas fans, Texas Longhorns, are you SEC ready? Okay. All right. So let's talk about the crowds at the games, right? So even just last week, they said, oh, like you mentioned earlier, people are like, yeah, I don't know what it's like to play in front of 100,000. we have 100,000 in our stadium, right? And we have one of the biggest stadiums in the SEC, and we had the biggest crowd in the SEC last weekend for ULM.
And not just at home, though.
Yeah, right.
Like, that's the thing, too. Like, I want to point out, and I think a lot of people that are, not diehard Longhorn fans or don't follow the program super closely don't necessarily put these pieces together. But Texas sells out other places everywhere they go. Everybody wants to watch Texas. Even when Texas was bad, we were selling out other stadiums, right? We go into the Big House. The Big House has the largest crowd ever, which is the biggest stadium in the United States, right? Has the highest capacity. We go into Tuscaloosa, set records in Tuscaloosa for capacity. It just, again, that mentality that Texas doesn't understand what it's like to play in front of large crowds week in and week out is insane.
And even if they're buying tickets because they hope their team beats Texas, they still want to see.
That's still a hostile environment that Texas is playing in front of. Texas knows what it's like to play in front of a lot of people that don't like you. We're Texas, for God's sake. We know people don't like us.
All right, so let's talk about the fans. There's a video that you wanted to share. It's so funny. There was a toddler. Go ahead and play it. There was a toddler that
back getting from my huns. While she going down, I'm bragging on what I done. She smoking my stuff, saying she ain't having fun. She give it back, now you don't get none. Everybody in the club get tips. Everybody in the club get tips.
What do you think about this? Is she SEC ready? Is the toddler SEC ready?
If any video proves that Texas is SEC ready, it's that, right?
Yeah. So that video was posted by @ColinRugg, trying to explain why the woman was chugging a beer.
Look, let's also explain to this for folks that don't know. That's actually legal in Texas. If your parent or guardian is with you,
I don't know if 4-year-old is legal, but
I don't think she was 4.
They said she's 4. Who appears? She looked like a toddler.
Appears about 4.
Okay, she looks about 4.
She's a small 10. It's fine.
No. It happens though.
It does happen. And look,
it can happen.
And honestly, the other part of that too, it's Mick Ultra. Come on, it's basically water anyway.
That's practically water.
She's fine. So no, look. All joking aside, we talk about this a lot, and a lot has been made about Texas and OU coming to the SEC, leaving the Big 12. Texas isn't worried. Directors Cup winners. 3 out of the last 4.
Right. Oh, that's another thing is Texas.
Texas isn't worried. OU might have some concerns. There may be some questions for OU, especially their football program going into the SEC with the trajectory of their program right now. We'll talk about them a little bit later when we make our picks. But yeah, I mean, Texas, listen, we're ready. The fans, we got toddlers chugging beers. We got, sellout crowds for small games or, smaller opponents. We're ready. Texas is ready. That's
number 1 in the country.
Absolutely.
Just like I said, just being in the conversation for the number 1 in the country is massive. And 4 weeks in, Sark's 4th year, everything's on track.
Right.
Everything's on track. And a favorite to win the national championship.
So let me ask this, with this being Texas's first year in the SEC, but considering where the program is at, I'm going to ask you personally.
Okay.
What do you consider success and failure for this year? Is it natty or bust?
Before we lost every running back who's ever worn a jersey at Texas, I would have said, I don't think national championship or bust. And I think before the season, I said playoff or bust. Because if you don't even make the playoff when they're going to take 4, maybe 5 SEC teams, depending how other teams look, if you're not even in the top, quarter of the SEC after coming in with the roster they did and the stability and off a playoff run and all those things,
right?
I would say playoff or bust for sure.
Yeah. And
I still think 4 games in, number 1 in the country. If you start number 1 in the country and you fall out of the top 13, 12, 13 playoff option teams, that would be a fall. Normally a team is like, if something happens to our quarterback, that season get derailed. We're fortunate that while QB1 needs a rest, QB2 can hold it down. QB3
for now.
Yeah. During this stretch of games.
Yeah.
During this stretch, not Georgia, not Oklahoma. It will be a struggle, more of a struggle. So I would say playoffs. Oh, absolutely, playoffs or bust.
All right.
If we're not in the playoffs, something really got derailed.
Yeah. No. So for me, I would say, for this season and where Texas is at right now, for me, it's national championship game or bust. Because
this is going to be the hardest it's ever been to make it to that game.
I understand that. But for where Texas is at, last year we made the playoffs, right? Yes, 14 playoff, harder to make than a 12-team playoff. But that's what I'm saying. For me, if playoffs are just the goal, that's a step back from where the goals were last year, right? The goals were to make the playoffs last year with only 4 teams.
But last year, the top 4 got in. This year, we could be top 4, but have to play 3 or 4 games. And
I understand it.
Woo.
I understand.
Yeah.
And people don't like to hear this, but playoff systems are not the best way to determine the best team.
no, they're not.
It's a lot of luck comes
it
in, a
gives
lot of
more
chance,
people an opportunity.
upset
Right.
Cinderella stories, right? So I understand that argument. I get all of that. But in my mind, we made a more difficult college football playoff last year, right?
Yes,
So
and
if
we didn't get
if
past round 1.
I get it, but if our
I know, but
if our only goal is to make the playoffs again, that's a lower bar in my opinion. So I think that Texas needs to make the playoffs and has to do well. I think Texas has to get to the national championship game because that's the next natural progression into it. And the other thing I'm going to argue here is that like the pieces are together. I agree. The running back room, concerning. Absolutely concerning at this point.
Can't make it through a season with 1.5.
Absolutely concerning at this point. But we're going to have Quinn back. We've got a seasoned quarterback that's getting some rest right now. We think he's probably going to be playing this game. Maybe not, but he's got a little bit of rest. We'll talk about that when we preview. But you've got the biggest key to me this year is the O-line. We've got the best O-line in the nation.
One of,
But whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It is the best O-line in the nation right now. And I feel like the pieces are here with a seasoned quarterback, with the best O-line in the nation, with, we've got an amazing wide receiver core, and our defense is functioning at a very high level. If we can get through with the running backs, this is the year. The pieces are falling in place for Texas to make a national championship run. Next year, a lot of those elements change, right? We're going to have the talent at O-line, but we're not going to have the experience. A lot of these guys are gone. I think it's 4 out of the 5 are gone next year, right?
Could be. Mm-hmm.
We're very likely going to be getting Arch Manning. So I'm appreciating the real-time playing action that he's getting right now, but you're still going to have a younger quarterback behind a less experienced O-line next year.
Yes.
The talent will still be there. The scheme will still be there. Our coaches hopefully will still be there. But when you compare those two things, putting all of that together, I really feel like this year for Texas is the year. Like if we're going to do it, these are our best odds to do it. So,
well, right now, Texas has the best odds in the country, 47% chance of winning the title. Next is Oregon, Utah, Miami.
mhm.
That's crazy. Anyways, but yeah, right now, college football resume ranks us as the best odds of winning the national championship.
Yeah.
But being so thin at running back,
It's a concern.
it's a massive concern
Sure.
because you cannot go into any big game. You can't go into an Oklahoma game with an elite defense because they do still have a great defense, or Georgia with an even better defense. You can't go into those games being even slightly one-dimensional.
Yeah.
Like you have to establish a run.
Yeah.
And I love that our, Jaden Blue and Quintravian Wisner and Jarrett Gibson, like they are out there already bumped up and bruised, and they are still going hard and doing their best. Wisner, I think, rests again this week.
Yeah, he is.
Questionable.
Yeah.
And you give nothing but respect for that. But the reality is that you've got it. And it's unfortunate that, days before the season, you lose Baxter and then you lose potential depth with Christian Clark. So, and then into the season already, even the third and fourth and fifth strings are on the list of our RBs that are out. So it's that is to me a huge concern. And it was a concern when the first 2 went down.
Right.
Now losing depth and then having to work the other ones even more than you'd want to in a game like Mississippi State.
Right.
That worries me.
No, I agree. I mean, it's certainly, you'd be silly to say, oh, the running back room situation isn't a big deal. It is. It's absolutely something.
Fortunately, they do have an O-line like they have,
Right.
which and an offensive mind like Sark, who can find ways to scheme more run
Right.
from Niblett, or using maybe Bond or Bolden more, or finding ways to use run outside, inside, and move people around.
Yeah.
Sark can do it, and we've seen he's been doing it. Let us know, what do you think? What is you're saying? What is the
bust? Like if this didn't happen,
This
then
season, yeah.
then this season was a failure. Like what?
Where is the bar for Texas football this season?
I mean, I would say not just getting to the playoffs, but winning a playoff game for sure. Winning at least one.
Yeah.
But getting to the 8
To me, that's
the
floor.
The top 4, maybe the semifinals, getting to the championship game with so thin at running back.
Yeah.
That would be amazing if they pulled that off.
That's fair. All right. Well, we'll touch briefly. We definitely want to look at Mississippi State and talk about that coming up. But we're going to touch briefly on just a quick ULM recap. Again, we've got a full recap on our podcast. Go ahead and check out any of your favorite podcast channels. We've got them all posted there, so you can catch up, get our thoughts on the ULM game. But just real quickly. Texas went into this game as a 44.5. I think it turned into a 45-point favorite and won by 48. We talked about that a little bit.
I can't believe they've covered that.
Yeah, that point spread was pretty massive.
Mm-hmm.
And Texas, like I mentioned earlier in this hour, Texas is winning the games that they're supposed to win in the fashion that they're expected to win them. And I think that's been a big shift from where we've been at before. Of course, we know ULM's odds winning this game weren't crazy high. Right, going into this, but Texas comes out 51-3. Yet again, we see the defense really stand up, really show out and shut down any, ULM was considered a one-dimensional team, and we took away that one dimension, right?
Yeah.
So the defense is playing at a high level. Again, want to give a quick shout out. You mentioned earlier Niblett, who was a wide receiver, kind of moved over to that running back.
I think he's helping a bit on both sides.
Yeah. Out of necessity, but we've talked often, like we want to give a Rojo award every week for players. And I think Niblett was one for you that you would pick because just showing up, he's whatever the team needs. He could very well could have transferred out, very well could have said, no, I'm not going to get enough playing time. Like we've seen some players do even this week and say, I'm good. I'll take my talents elsewhere, but he didn't. He said, no, I'm going to do what the team needs because I'm here for the team. So again, we might see him in action this week. And then
they'll need him.
Yeah. And then we talked a little bit about Davis too, stepping up at that H-back. Yeah. Stepping up at that H-back position. His blocking has really improved. He's helping out with the O-line again. So offensively, let's talk about this real quick with ULM. Of course, we saw Arch Manning make his debut.
But it was the Jaden Blue show.
Yeah, it really was. We saw Sark rely heavily on Jaden Blue to kind of ease things up for Arch. Now, Arch's numbers ended up pretty damn good, right? They ended
50% passing.
That could be better, but he still had 250 some odd yards.
Yes.
Yeah,
touchdowns. At the end of the day, 51 points.
Or how many touchdowns? 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So what we saw out of Arch Manning was what any reasonably minded human could expect out of a guy making his first start in college, right? The kid's got an arm. We know he can make those long ball throws. There were a few that were off, a couple underthrown, a couple overthrown, and he wasn't checking down, right? So we know that that's a little bit like, okay, let's work on that this week. Let's address that this week. But you're absolutely right. Jaden Blue came in, really gave some relief, and we weren't forcing Arch to throw every single down. Sark had mentioned, listen, play calling was on me. He said, I wish that I had given some easier, basically dink and dunk play calls for Arch so that he wasn't forced to check down, which he wasn't doing very well, that the long ball wasn't even an option. So Sark said, look, if we can get, like you mentioned, if we can get his completion percentage up to 60, 62, 65%,
a little more success.
Fill him up with some easier, smaller passes, that'll help the team a little bit. So one thing I'm encouraged by is we have seen any problems that we've had that are kind of glaring in a game. It seems like the coaching staff by the next game has addressed the issues.
Except punt return or kick return.
So
that's still.
Yeah, we'll talk about that for sure. Do you expect Arch for coming into Mississippi State? Do you accept if Arch is playing, if Quinn is starting? We still don't know who the starter is at this point.
Arch.
You think it's Arch? Do you expect that we're going to see maybe those issues addressed quickly, or is this is it going to take some more time to develop?
Well, I think the fact that Sark himself said, like, took ownership, like the play calling was on me. Like I should have hit, like him and Millie, like they sat together and said, oh man, we have a lot of deep throws in this plan. They're planned calls. And he said, like maybe this time around we should set him up for a little more success, calm him down a bit. But Arch is a gunslinger. I mean, he has no fear. He is fearless. He was leading the
one of the top in the country now with deep shots, like taking deep shots. And that to me would be something that we can look for, especially we know, like last week we talked about the defense is going to attack a young quarterback with pressure, and they got to him early and they got to him often, but then they settled down a bit. So maybe, especially like Mississippi State, they saw how ULM was able to get after Arch last week. They're going to bring something similar. So maybe they can be ready for it this time and have those little quick shots, quick routes, take what the defense gives you. And that will open up the ones that he loves, right?
Sure. All right. So you're convinced that Arch is starting this game. Yeah. Is that,
yes.
If you had to put odds on it, what would you say?
Yeah. I mean, even
what's your level of confidence?
94%.
All right.
Why? What? Okay. Let's talk about it. What is the benefit? Let's say, okay, so 2 years ago, Quinn was also out leading up to the OU game. He came out and threw 49-0 was the game, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not so worried that he's going to come in and be rusty. I mean, he's been starting for a while. He's trained all off season. He's still actively engaged. We saw the videos of him with the headset and on the sideline and moving. He's been practicing at whatever level he can for the last couple of weeks, moving around. I'm not worried that he comes into the OU game rusty. I'm more worried that he goes out there and pushes it too soon and then he's out for 2 months.
Yeah.
If this was the first SEC game and it was Georgia now, then absolutely hoping Quinn is ready to go. 85% put him in there, right?
Yeah.
But this isn't, because Texas is so highly favored and they have a plan with a very capable backup. I don't understand the rush to put Quinn out there yet.
For me,
if he's not ready.
Yeah. For me, we've been hearing a lot of good things out of practice, saying he's been practicing well. Of course, Sark's not going to show his hand any more than he needs to. For me, I do have a few concerns about rust. I agree with every point that you made. I think that Quinn is a different quarterback this year than he was last year, than he was 2 years ago. We've seen that progression. We've seen the maturity. We've seen the development. But I still, any player, any time that you're sitting and not getting the in-game reps, there's still a little bit, for me, concern of just getting back into the groove of things, finding your guys again, getting used to it. So in my opinion, I think it would make sense to, if he's feeling good and if he's feeling ready to go, give him a few series, right? Let him start, give him a few series, let him get comfortable, let him feel okay. Yeah. And then pull him to rest and put Arch in. I think that to me is going to be important, just to keep him kind of greased up and ready. Because again, if you're talking that he doesn't play at all, you're going on 4 weeks going into the OU game that he hasn't played.
And if Mississippi State comes in and hits him on the side because they know that's where he's hurting, he could be out how many more weeks?
Potential.
And then you don't have him for OU or Georgia or Kentucky.
And I get what you're saying, but again, for me, a strained oblique is different than a broken bone or different than a tweaked joint.
But a strained oblique can be retweaked quickly.
Yeah.
And you're out again, starting your rehab another 2, 3, 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't think the risk is worth the reward?
If he is not 100% physically and mentally ready to go, if he's going to be out there second guessing or worried that he's going to take a hit or something, or still in pain where he's just going to go out and throw interceptions because he has, doesn't have the mobility or whatever's happening, I don't think that's worth the risk.
Yeah,
for
risk
this
worth the
game.
reward. Sure.
For this game.
Sure.
Yeah. But I trust the staff and Quinn and Sark to put him out when he's ready.
To have the conversations. Yeah,
right.
For sure. All right. Well, let's talk about some expectations going into this game. Okay. Looking at it. So we're on offense. Let's keep talking offense. What are you looking for? What are some keys to the game for Texas to be successful against Mississippi State?
Find a way to keep running the ball. There's going to be new, like we mentioned, Niblet, manufacture the run somehow. We're limited. Last week we saw Jaden Blue with 24, 25 carries, plus he was involved in the run game. That was really heavy because Wisner was out. Gibson was in and out, limping and struggling also with some pain. They're so depleted at running back. Like I said, find ways to manufacture run with other players too, so that even though they're going to have that extra week off, I don't think we need to run them into the ground right right before the real bulk meat of the season happens soon.
So you're thinking like more trick plays maybe to get
No,
more
it doesn't
guys
need
involved?
to be tricky. Just use every inch of the field to spread them out, make room for the run game, and go ahead and still have fun with those deep shots. They don't have to be taken away.
Yeah.
They're still exciting, and he's good at them.
Yeah.
And each week he gets reps with the wide receivers. The one where he threw like Bond was like between three defenders, and he almost pinpointed it in there. Next week, I bet he hits it. Don't throw it in the triple coverage again, but if you do.
So you're thinking this is going to be more of a like hold back the running backs because we don't want anybody to get hurt, but run more.
No, I didn't say hold them back. I'm like, find ways to get more people involved in the run game.
I like it.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So you're thinking heavy dose of Niblet. Definitely going to see some Blue, but maybe not quite as many carries for Blue as what we saw against ULM is what you're hoping for.
I'm sorry. What was that? I was reading Ghost of Friends comments. Sorry.
Yeah. So you're saying like get Niblet more involved. You want to see him there.
We'll need him.
A little bit of Blue, but maybe not quite as much as what we saw.
And hopefully if
with Blue.
Gibson is healthy, find more ways.
Because Gibson's listed as questionable as well. He's listed as hurt. Like
everybody's hurt.
Yeah, we're definitely getting into kind of the thin, like that real, when you make a 7-layer dip, you can't quite get your chip all the way through, and then you finally do, and now you're at the last
I never eat those dips because what's on top?
Yeah, avocado.
Guacamole. All right, Ghost and Friends says healthy running backs, turnover-free football, no false start penalties.
Yeah,
that's another thing that needs to get cleaned up is all those little ticky-tacky penalties.
No, agreed.
What do you want from the offense?
Yeah, I think I'd really like to see, and this probably goes without saying, but Texas has such a massively improved red zone offense. From
number 1 in the country.
Right. We went from one of the worst last year to the best as it stands right now this year. So keeping that consistency, finding ways to score, finding ways to get in that end zone, and staying consistent with it. I want Auburn to be bored as far as
Mississippi State.
No, I want Brett Auburn.
Oh, Bert Auburn.
To be
I thought you
bored.
were talking about Auburn.
No, our guy. Auburn. I want him to be
Bert
bored.
Auburn,
The only reason I want him out there is kicking extra points. I want him to keep that going.
And he's at what streak right now?
He's at 140
something.
140 or 145.
You counted it up the other day. He's at 140 something.
It's
100 consecutive PATs.
Yeah, it's
knock on wood that we're not the ones who drinks it.
Yeah, it's 140 or 145.
Yeah, something.
He's consistent.
A lot.
So that's what I want him out there for. I want Texas in the end zone. I want them, long sustained drives, eat up the clock, find the end zone. I mean, that's a consistent pattern.
You're not gonna hit that massive spread if you eat up too much clock. Well, we know Mississippi State is one of the worst teams in the country on stopping the run. They've given up hundreds of yards game after game. Not even to great teams. They can't stop the run. So if ever there was an opportunity for Texas to get like Niblet and these other guys a little more involved in the run game
in SEC play,
now's the time to just spread the reps.
No, I agree. So, we talked about this last week. Texas opens up right now. They are at a 38.5 point favorite. That's where the line stands right now.
That SEC grind, I tell you.
So last week, again, we'll do our picks a little bit later for this game. Last week with ULM, it was a big ass spread, 45 points. Texas covered that.
I can't believe
So Texas is consistently I think this is giving a lot of respect to where Texas is at, where their defense is at. Again, defense has only allowed 22 points through 4 games. That's phenomenal. There's a lot of respect here, keeping that number, that spread quite high, expecting the offense to produce and the defense to shut down, really.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as offense goes with Texas, I think watching that red zone continue, again, eat up some clock, find the end zone, put up the points and keep going. So let's talk defense a little bit. Defensive expectations. Lay them on me. What do you think?
All right. So we know Jeff Lebby is the coach. He's from the Bryles
tree,
Baylor,
and was there when the whole scandal was happening.
Yes, he was there. Yeah. And I don't know how. Maybe because his last name isn't Bryles, he slid away. But anyway, he is part of that. Art Briles veer and shoot tree. He's going to spread sideline to sideline. He's going to dink and dunk. He's going to have the play action. They're going to try and run the ball. I think that's a lot of things because Briles' highlights were always so explosive plays. People forget, or sometimes we forget, that they had huge rushing numbers. Like they run the ball under Briles' system. And even though it's a modified system that he's running here now, they are still going to try to run the ball.
Yeah.
And, catch you sleeping, then throw one over
the top. They do have explosive plays almost at the rate of Texas too. So Mississippi State, even though their overall offensive numbers aren't wonderful, they have scored points 56, 23, 17, 28. Like, so they have put points on the board. However, the biggest thing,
but wait,
that was with Shapen.
Not so
right.
fast.
That was with a kind of sort of experienced quarterback who's been around the block with a few schools. That was with Shapen, Blake Shapen, who was out the rest of the season with shoulder surgery.
Yeah.
Now it's a red shirt or true freshman. So I don't know what are they going to do now? Like they're.
Yeah, look, I've got to say, I don't envy Levy's position right now. That's a tough hand to be dealt. You're going into SEC play and you got Texas on the schedule first and your quarterback's out. Now, of course, we can sit here and say, well, potentially Quinn Ewers is out for us too, but slightly different situation there, right? My question is Mississippi State going to be able to get anything going on offense?
Yes, they will.
All right. So you're thinking, like, what do you think is going to be most effective against this Texas defense for Mississippi State?
So far we haven't played great quarterbacks, and this is again he might be a superstar in 2 years, being brand new, also being thrown in as a backup quarterback into this game on the road at the number 1 team in the country. His first start this season with this team. I think they have a solid tight end. Maybe we've seen teams in the last couple of weeks go over the middle on Texas, run the middle through the middle, or just over the middle. So maybe they find that little hole too. If they're spreading our DBs, if they're making our defense play side to side and tiring out our linebackers a little bit, we're going to really need those safeties. My boy Mookie. We're going to need those safeties to be alert and communicating and up fast. And I could see them maybe taking those over the middle shots a little bit with that tight end. I don't know what else they have, because Texas is established where they can stop the run.
Right.
They're going to force him to throw. They're going to pressure the throws, and let's see if he can get anything moving over the middle.
No, I think that's what I expect out of them as well. I think Texas is so good at shutting down the run. I think that continues this week. We're going to see that run just really not be too much of an option. So I do think Levy is going to try to get his tight ends involved over the middle, his bigs, get some size mismatchups there if they have them. And agreed, I think he's going to try to spread our corners out quite a bit, maybe use some screens, maybe use some confusion there in the middle and some stunts to try to get action in the middle, because you're right. If the defense has been showing flaws or chinks in the armor at all, it has been right up the middle where Texas kind of lets off that gas a little bit, isn't quite as much in the face. And some teams, ULM even had some success across the middle with their big tight end, I believe it was, that just was trucking through some of our guys. So I agree. I think that's something that if Mississippi State hopes to have some success, the middle of the fields where they're going to be really, really targeting. All right. So do we want to look at Levy's? And look, Mississippi State, I think they have a full understanding of what is happening here, where they, who they're playing and who they're going up against.
Yeah. So here's Coach Levy when he was asked this week in their media availability, his press conference, what he thinks about going up against Texas and the talent here.
Yeah, they've been incredibly dominant in all 3 phases. Defensively, they're as good as there is in America, giving up 5 points a game. Offensively, they've got this incredible amount of skill. They're playing really good up front. Regardless of who the QB is going to be, both those guys have the ability to run the offense the way Sark wants them to, and then they're very, very aggressive from a team standpoint. So, again, it's a football team that's playing as good as anybody in the country. It's like we talked about as a group today. What an unbelievable opportunity for us to see how we're going to respond. And our guys, they did. They had energy on the practice field today, frustrated, disappointed, without a doubt. But our energy, our toughness, our effort, our focus is about us. And so we're going to continue to focus on those things and get ready to roll.
All right. I mean, what can you do? Their schedule is brutal.
At least he didn't call his team what was ULM's coach, a mid-level group of 5 team.
Mid-level.
So no, I agree. I mean, it's kind of, you look at this and say, man, as much as we talk about Texas injuries and who is questionable and who's definitely out, Mississippi State is playing pretty banged up as well. Again, as you mentioned, their starting quarterback is out. Their wide receiver, Whitmore, is out. Their safety, Woodard, out. Wide receiver, Hudson, out. Running back,
Kevon Lee.
Yeah, Kevon Lee out. One of their D-line, Calvin Dinkins out. Then we get into, they've got 2 cornerbacks that are questionable, 2 safeties that one's questionable, one's probable. I mean, all in all, Mississippi State's pretty banged up too.
Yeah. I mean, they should be glad that Isaac Smith, he's their leading tackler right now, and he's at safety, which means nobody up front is tackling, and he's having to chase shit himself, right?
Yeah.
So, but they should be glad that he's probable, that he'll probably play. So we know they come to Texas this week, and they are probably not looking ahead to Georgia, but they have Georgia before us, and then A&M, Arkansas, Tennessee, Missouri, Ole Miss. They played all the top 5-6 teams in the country, and they are the bottom of the SEC.
Like, you do feel for Mississippi State. They've got, you want to talk about an SEC gauntlet.
That they have the gauntlet.
They've got the gauntlet.
OU has the gauntlet, and Mississippi State and Florida have the gauntlet.
That being said, kind of alluding to what you mentioned earlier, when you're at the bottom part of the SEC, everybody in front of you is going to be better, right? So, it's a little bit of semantics there, but all right. So we definitely know this Texas is heavily favored. Love this comment by Bobby.
Let's see.
You think that we're going to beat the spread if Sark doesn't shut it down like at Michigan? I think Michigan was an opportunity where Texas started to shift in, rotate guys in. We saw the 2s and the 3s play at Michigan, which was pretty impressive. I agree. They kind of let up off that gas towards the end, maybe allowed some junk time scores that, while it was still a blowout for Texas, we would have liked a little bit more, maybe no touchdowns allowed, but that's all right.
That's just getting
I love that we're taking tacky over
that's
this.
Just getting greedy.
For sure.
All right. So before we move on from football overall, there are a couple of fun things that happen on the football team as they're getting ready. We know CJ Baxter has been injured and he's been out, but he still has massive love for the O-line, right? And so he gifted them Timberlands. Watch this. Here he is. He's given them some shoes. And you were hoping they were going to be burnt orange.
Listen, I almost lost my mind because I thought when they opened it up, they'd be burnt orange Tims. They weren't. That's okay.
I know, but those are still.
Hell yeah.
I mean, the guys like to rock those shoes.
Did you wear Timberlands?
No.
Oh, I did. I still have
I know
them.
you do.
I love them.
I don't like bulky boots.
Oh, I do.
If I'm going in the woods, I wish I had a pair. But when am I in the woods?
I was going to say, because you so often hike through the woods.
I'm never, unless I go with you. Unless I go with you to do something with the Longhorns or something, then I'm probably not in the woods.
No, that's
all
fair.
All right. So again, before we wrap up, the Longhorns are number 1 in the country right now. Steve Sarkisian was asked about being number 1. He said in his media availability, please don't be offended by my answer. What you think of us is irrelevant. What we do on the field is what matters. This is what it is, and that is the belief our team has. In this day and age of polls are irrelevant. There's a 12-team playoff, and to finish number 1 at the end, you're going to have to go earn it.
Yeah.
So that's what we talked about a minute ago. The difficulty of this year getting to be the champion is going to be harder than ever because you have to go week after week. If you the advantage or disadvantage of a bye week, right? And they asked him this morning, and we've had this discussion about FCS teams and people who schedule FCS teams. And I put a poll, and 70-80% of people agreed with me that an FCS team should not count towards bowl eligibility. We've had that debate, right?
Yeah.
Should they count towards bowl eligibility? But they also talked about this November schedule, looking ahead, that Texas has already had their 4 out of conference games already, and we are one of the few schools that never schedule FCS, but also when the gauntlet gets going and the SEC play, the gauntlet of the SEC gets going, the grind. Texas doesn't have a Southern Ladies of the Poor in November, right?
Right.
They don't have Women of the Poor team to play.
Yeah.
They're going back to back to back games. And they asked him about it today in the media, like, how do you feel about, do you want that little week off, scrimmage, glorified scrimmage? And he said, he likes it this way. He likes the back-to-back because he said it's hard to get them focused. And then you get these sloppy games where you're struggling against a nobody team because the guys aren't focused.
Right.
He said you get their attention this way.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. Like, if you're going to be in the dog mentality all season, why ease up on that at the end, right? Like, you can take yourself a little nap, take yourself a little rest. No, like, keep the foot on the gas the whole time. Why? I understand, like, teams might be banged up. You might want a little bit of rest to rest some of your players. But like we mentioned, if you're going to have the mentality to get through a 12-team playoff and to compete for a national championship, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I don't like the idea of easing up towards the end of the season just because you need a little nappy poo, right? I agree with him. I like what he's saying. I like what he's saying. Stay aggressive the whole time.
I like it, but they were also, we've seen, not every team does this, but we saw this past few weeks, they were ready for ULM. They were ready for UTSA. They took all those things seriously. I don't know. You just, whatever hand you're given, you find a way to say that's the best way, because that's what you got.
But to me, the advantage of Texas's schedule this year, we've got 2 bye weeks. How is that? To me, I'd rather have the 2 bye weeks than scheduling,
absolutely,
women of the poor, ladies of the poor towards the end. Yeah.
Especially when we're kind of going to get back to the pageant show, a beauty pageant is what I mean, of rankings back in those BCS days where it was a little bit beauty pageant, right?
Yeah.
So instead of, the top 4 usually separate themselves. There was always some controversy, but usually your top teams are your top teams. Now there's going to be placement and setting of, so if at the end of the season you beat a team like Kentucky or A&M or someone that really is a statement in a harsh environment, and you win those games, that's going to look a little bit better in the Heisman race. All those things are going to look a little bit better than if you just played the women of the poor and put up 60. Or Quinn went on the road and beat a team that hadn't lost in 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah, agreed. I think, you've got to look at those quality wins. Strength of schedule plays into everything. And it's going to, like you mentioned, it's going to matter more than it has in the past few years. Something that was brought up too, that kind of relates to this, that I wanted to point out. Cody brought this up in our discussion on Spaces the other day, which I thought was a great point. It doesn't benefit a team to go to your conference championship and lose. So it's a thing where if you're going to go to that conference championship, win it, right? Because if you go and you win, then you earn yourself a bye week from the playoffs, right? But if you lose, you're probably still getting in, especially the SEC, right?
Yeah,
number two probably getting in.
Yeah.
Number 2, 3, 4 of the SEC probably getting in. If you're number 2, then you don't have that bye week, right? If you're
you get to host at home.
That is true. But if you're number 3, you don't have to play in the SEC championship game. So you get a little bit of a rest
you
there.
You get a bye week.
Before you go into the playoffs. So it's almost punishing the number 2 team and rewarding the number 3 team. So
of maybe the Big Ten and the SEC, the other who will probably get 3 or 4 in, the other team, this doesn't help the Big 12, who probably won't get 3 in, or it doesn't help, the ACC, which probably won't get 3 in,
the Pac-2
or the 2-pack. It's not going to help 2-pack conference.
Right.
Anyway, all right. So we're going to make our picks against the spread for college football. We'll preview a little bit of NFL. And then we have some really fun top stories today. So, but before we do that, let's talk about our buddy Chuck and his beautiful land. I want you to, when you get ready, let me know. So you ready?
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to play this audio, and this is beautiful photos, and you tell them about it.
Yeah. So again, this is a great opportunity. If you are looking for the perfect Texas experience this football season, you have got to check out the Rockin' Diamond S Ranch. It is seated on 120 acres in the beautiful hill country near Johnson City, located in Blanco. And it's just a quick drive to Austin or San Antonio. The property sleeps 14 with 1 primary house and 2 fully furnished cabins. There's wildlife watching, fishing, playing with the longhorns. There's indoor and outdoor eating and cooking areas. It's an absolute place that you can host a lot of people, have a great time, and really take in everything that Texas has to offer. So if you're looking for a place to go for F1, for the Georgia game even, for Texas football, or just a family getaway, you need to book now and save hundreds, if not thousands, from the jacked up Austin rates. So get your authentic Texas experience at Rockin' Diamond S Ranch. Book online at rockindiamondsranch.com. We will put that in the comments.
I did.
Or call Chuck Smith at 512-694-1969 to reserve your perfect Texas getaway today. So, gotta love it.
What was that number? 512?
512-694-1969.
All right. I put those in the comments for you. So if you want to find out more information, it's a cool house with lots of space for the whole family. It's pretty awesome. All right. Thanks, Chuck, for letting us share that for you. All right. So
What were you gonna say?
No,
I was
I'm ready to
col-
talk some football.
College football.
But also, we're getting back into our happy hour time.
Oh, we are.
We've got
and tomorrow is my birthday.
So we gonna celebrate.
Celebrate good times. That's what it says along the top of my light bar right now. Is celebrate good times for my party.
So for those of y'all just joining us, if you know, we've been doing Fire the Cannon for a while, and we always appreciate.
And I just remembered I have to play rugby tonight.
Yeah. We always appreciate our wonderful bartender and Rocky's other half, Richard, for taking care of us at happy hour. Drink them if you got them. We're going to say hook them and happy birthday.
Happy birthday to me,
Yeah.
almost. Thank you.
So, all right, there's that.
It is happy hour.
It is happy hour. So let's get you good and liquored up.
And then we have the puppy. Oh, he left the puppy.
And then send you to play.
Richard, you left the puppy.
I'll get it.
Puppy's so cute. All right. Okay. So let's look ahead at college football this week. So there's a Thursday night game, and we don't need to pick this game, but we'll just tell you it is Army at Temple. Friday night.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Army at Temple. Would you rather watch that or Cowboys on a Thursday night?
The Cowboys. Actually, I'll have them both on, you know.
I know you will.
That's tonight. Today's Thursday. Army is
I
12.5-point favorites. Temple is Stan Drayton's team, right?
Mhm.
Stan Drayton, right? He went into OU and got shellacked. And they're at home, and they're almost 2 touchdown underdogs at home. Army's actually a solid program. All right. So Friday night, we'll have these games on in my party. Virginia Tech at 7 Miami. Before the season, we visited with Mike Harge, and he was like, "Oh man, Virginia Tech is my underdogs." And they started the season like 1-1, a little rough. They are now 2-2, and they get to go to Miami. Miami is 17.5-point favorites at home. What? Any thoughts on that game?
I agree with it. I think Miami covers this.
Miami smokes them.
Yeah. Look, for me, Miami's been kind of the surprise of the season. We knew that they've been building and they've had little hints of getting better, but I just feel like they've really come on this year and they're playing some pretty dominating football.
I think Cristobal now has a person that manages, helps him with clock management now.
He's got somebody tapping him on the back, coach.
No, literally, I think there's I'm not even kidding. I think there is now someone on the staff whose job is to tell him, no, we have to kick off, or
he needs a no man instead of a yes man.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. And then also Washington, they fell off the planet. Everyone left them. Well, I think their mascot left them. Yeah.
When DeBoer left, that was a tough.
Yeah. And they had their lightning in a bottle last year. So hopefully I better knock on wood. That's not us next year whenever we All right, Saturday, lots of big games. Okay, this is sneaky good. Kentucky at Ole Miss. We know Kentucky has gone toe-to-toe. I keep saying that's my dark horse. Watch out. Don't overlook them at
potential
home.
Trap game for Texas.
Yes, potential trap game for Texas. Ole Miss is 17-point favorites at Kentucky. I'm going to say Kentucky is going to cover that. It's at Ole Miss. But I think Kentucky has enough defense. They went in a dogfight with Georgia. I think they have enough to figure out Ole Miss's schemes. I'm going to say Kentucky covers, but Ole Miss wins.
Yeah, that 17 is quite a bit. The only thing I'm concerned about a little bit here is, did Kentucky blow their load against Georgia? Did they just burn themselves out against Georgia? Do they have enough left in the tank to go up against a really good Ole Miss team? 17-point favorite. I think that's quite a bit. I do think that Kentucky covers that, but not by much. I see Ole Miss winning this by 2 scores and probably closer to 14. So, yeah, I'm taking Ole Miss in this to win overall, but I do think Kentucky covers, but barely.
Yeah. Yeah, Kentucky's not loaded on offense. I'm just counting on their defense to do enough to keep them in the game.
Sure.
All right, Minnesota at Michigan. Michigan's now ranked number 12. We don't have to pick that game. I just thought I'd tell you. Okay, this is a good one. So the Big 12, like we've talked about, is anybody's conference right now. Anybody can win this conference. Oklahoma State at Kansas State. We just saw the upset that I picked. I said BYU would go in there and Kansas State would go and lose to BYU or get blown out. And they BYU whooped them. And then Oklahoma State, who just lost at home to Utah.
Yeah.
So 2 teams coming off a loss, both just dropped in the rankings. What do you say? Oklahoma State at Kansas State.
What's the spread on this one?
Let's see. Kansas State's at home and they're favored by 5.
Yeah, this one, kind of like you alluded to, this is a toss-up for me.
I don't know. 5 seems a lot for
the Big 12 is such a mystery to me this year. I really feel like it's kind of all over the place. I'm going to take, Kansas State. Don't break my heart again. I'm going to take Kansas State in this one only because they're at home. Again, I think Manhattan has the potential when their fans are in it, when their fans are excited. I think, Manhattan can be a tough place to play. I will say this, if Kansas State loses this game, I think they lose their crowd for the season. I think that's a crowd that they need their team to be good. I'm just saying,
You're calling them fair weather fans?
I've been to Manhattan many times. I've had pleasant enough times there. I'm just saying, with the high expectations that Kansas State had football-wise coming into the season, them not performing, I think if Kansas State loses this game, the fans start to lose a little bit of interest. But all that being said, I'm taking Kansas State just because it's at home for them.
Okay. This is a morning game. I don't know. It's 11 a.m. Is Kansas State rowdy at 11 a.m.?
Kansas State, tailgating-wise, no, they're never rowdy.
I know, but when the game kicks off, is it going to be a home field advantage?
If they're excited, it's Bill Snyder Stadium. I think that's another one of the memorial stadiums with the name on the front of it.
Yeah.
Bill Snyder Stadium can get loud.
Yeah.
The way that it's built up.
Maybe a Halloween night game, but
against Texas.
Texas, yes.
No, but that's what I'm saying.
But Saturday morning,
if they're hyped up, again, I'm talking expectations for Kansas State were high this year from the fans. So if the fans are still buying in, it can be a tough place to play.
Okay.
I think they're going to bring it for Oklahoma State because, again, those are the states, Oklahoma and Kansas are pretty close to each other. I think it's going to be a good environment. But once again, if K-State does not perform early, the crowd's out of it. So, again, I'm taking Kansas State because it's a home game. But if they lose this time, I'm out. I'm done. And I think their fans will be too.
Here's Ghost and Friends has a tip for us if we're making the bets. Coach Kleiman is 70% against the spread in his career, coming off a loss.
All right. Does that influence your pick here?
I'm gonna. You know what? I'm gonna say Kansas State does win because they're at home, but not by 5. I'm gonna say field goal-ish, so win, not cover.
Okay.
I'll say they actually win, but 5 seems like a lot when both teams are coming off a loss.
Yeah. Who knows what's going on?
BYU at Baylor, that should be interesting for no reason other than Baylor's at home and BYU is rising in the polls.
Is it the Battle of the Bible Thumpers here?
Yeah, let's see. It's what are Baylor?
Well, they're the Bears, but they're Baptists.
The Baptists against the
I
Mormons.
think
I put my money on the Mormons.
All right.
Go BYU.
Yeah, agree
all right. Okay, so Wisconsin at USC. Wisconsin is down to their 12th quarterback. I don't know. They lost their quarterback against Alabama in the first minute.
Yeah.
And 13 USC rising after that win at they lost to Michigan, so they fell a bit just behind Michigan. Yep. Who cares? We don't have to pick that one. Louisville, another top 25 game, 15 Louisville at 16 Notre Dame.
This one's interesting to me.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, this one's interesting to me again because Louisville to me is one of those teams that yet again, they always seem like they're on the cusp of something and then they fall off like crazy and you forget they exist. And then out of nowhere, here's Louisville being sneaky and
they're 3-0.
Right. And they're coming up.
All wins are horrible.
Yeah.
nothing to write home about yet.
But I still think this is an interesting matchup and seeing what Louisville is going to do. Now, is anybody going to actually be able to watch this game because it's on Peacock? Probably not. We'll read about
everybody
it later.
has Peacock by now.
No.
I do.
I refuse to pay for
it.
it.
I have every app.
I refuse to pay for it.
I pay. I'm so.
So Notre Dame, again, that's another one of those had high expectations this year.
Lost to NIU.
Yeah, and suffered probably one of the worst upset losses
ever.
Yeah.
One of ever.
I mean, that ranks up there with the Appalachian State. That ranks up there with, Central Michigan.
Yeah. And then NIU went on to lose to a bad team next week or something.
Yeah, for sure. So this one is interesting to me just because has Notre Dame fallen? Are they really that mid-level team right now?
Are they the 16th best team in the country?
That's the question. And has Louisville come up? Sorry, you're supposed to say that like you have marshmallows in your mouth. Louisville. Have they come up enough? And are they number 15? So this one to me is intriguing just because
it's going to establish who belongs in that ranking.
Right. There's a lot of questions about both teams. Louisville, kind of the surprise. Notre Dame, the disappointment, right? So to see how that plays out is going to be really interesting.
Notre Dame's favored by 7 at home.
Yeah.
And again, Notre Dame is not in the comp, like they're independent or whatever.
Right.
So this could have some implications if they're ranked high enough to get into a playoff. If Louisville, they probably won't win the ACC. So this could determine whether or not they're hanging out around a playoff spot. So even though this game is two whatever teams, it could have implications later of who's in the conversation for a playoff spot if one kind of knocks the other out.
Yeah.
All right. This is a good one because 21 Oklahoma, who was ranked 15 last week, dropped to 21. They go to Auburn. OU's favored by 2 on the road. Auburn's one of those teams. Like, I don't know how they still recruit so well.
It's Auburn. Yeah. I don't know. Look, this is another one that is interesting.
2-2 Auburn. The 2-2 Auburn Tigers.
Auburn is not a very good team right now, but Oklahoma seems to have just some problems right now. I mean, that's kind of understating it, right? I've mentioned this before. I'm going to stick with it. I think Venables is a great DC. I'm not convinced that he's got all the tools that he needs to be an excellent head coach at this level at a program like Oklahoma. Again, I think he's lacking some of those, or hasn't developed some of those CEO delegation skills, right? And I think we're starting to see that kind of play out in the way that OU is looking. The mismanagement, what I feel is a mismanagement of their quarterback situation, Dylan Gabriel.
Oh, yeah. Let's talk about that.
Let's talk about that for a second.
Okay, go ahead.
So a lot of OU fans get defensive about this.
9 Auburn 5.
We love it.
That's funny.
Ghost, you always bring it, man. I don't
say
think that's far
Oklahoma
off.
2, Auburn -6.
Listen, so a lot of folks talk about how OU ran off Dylan Gabriel, and OU fans will get defensive about it. What I understand is OU didn't run him off. They just said, oh, golly, we don't have a scholarship for you anymore.
Yeah.
So now I don't know 100% how true that is, but the person I heard this from, I trust and is pretty connected with the program. So I'll take it. I'll take it with a grain of salt. But
is that because it happens nowadays that we don't have a scholarship, but we have this NIL package that would keep you here? That's
possible.
Nowadays, in like Auburn.
That's possible, but
NIL will keep you here.
I don't disagree, but you're also not going to compete for a quarterback like Dylan Gabriel without a scholarship.
Yeah, that's the minimum, and then the NIL.
Right.
Okay.
So that's what I understand about Dylan Gabriel. So he leaves. Of course, they're expecting Arnold to come in and be just the best thing since sliced bread. And in my opinion,
was highly rated out of high school.
He very much was. Let's talk about this a little bit for OU.
Okay.
We've seen quarterback controversies before. Texas has certainly used a 2-quarterback situation more times than I care to count. We've had quarterbacks come in highly rated, and we haven't developed them perhaps in the way that we should have in the past. Texas fans should be pretty familiar with this process, at least by now. Do you feel that pulling Arnold right now is the right choice?
Whew.
I know.
Okay, like you said, there is a backstory to this. Dylan Gabriel was there. The Venables had this 50-something minute speech, rant, talk, therapy session for his press conference about, he wanted to go be closer to home or something. Oregon. I'm looking at a map. Here's Hawaii. Here's Oregon.
You're still talking West Coast.
Yeah. I mean, Oklahoma, it is hard to get there. You have to fly to a real town first. So to get out of there. So, or drive to Oklahoma City, I guess. And then from there, fly to a bigger city. So is there
Oklahoma City's
just side note, is there airport international?
Oklahoma City,
yeah. Okay, I don't know. Just wondering if they go anywhere. They're just so small.
Yeah.
So they went all in. However it happened that Dylan Gabriel didn't return. Like there's so many questions to that story. They went all in on Jackson Arnold. The fan base. I don't have time to look up receipts, but they're there.
Yeah.
The fan base, obviously the coaching staff, which is great. If you're going to invest in this kid and he is your future and you have a plan for him, great. The first 4 weeks that didn't pan out, right? It was stagnant. He was the turnover machine. It was not working with the offensive. And unfortunately for him, the timing was such that they went from a really great offensive line who have players in the NFL to a struggling turnover, rebuilding offensive line. So it's unfortunate timing for a young quarterback to have to play behind that. So when you put those together,
is it all his fault that he?
Yeah.
You know, the system was confused. I don't even know what their system is. What is their identity on offense? I don't know.
I don't think they know. That's the problem.
Yeah.
My question is though, do you think that it is a mistake for OU to pull him?
That's what I'm trying to like build. I
You're
don't know.
working through it.
I'm trying to work through it. Is it? I don't know. But I'm saying is they went all in on him, and not everything that's happening on the field is his fault. We don't understand. We don't understand the offensive identity, and he's behind a broken offensive lineman with most of the talent they thought was going to be Nick Anderson and all this receiver talent that they thought was going to be around him has been in and out. They rushed Nick Anderson back. He's injured again. So that's what. Is it all his fault that he's the one who's pulled and punished?
No, I don't think it's his fault.
Yeah, I don't know.
So for me on this, you come in as a highly touted recruit, 5-star quarterback. You've got all the accolades behind you. You're going to a program in college where you want to develop, right? So what I see right now, I think just in general, the quarterback situation has been mismanaged,
right?
Almost to the point of malpractice, but you know what? You do you, Sooners.
I'm trying to find a way to. I don't get it. I don't get it.
Right. The concern I would have as a Sooner fan, as somebody watching Oklahoma football, I would be concerned that, all right, you're pulling this really young kid who hasn't had the opportunity. He's behind a bad O-line, right? He's running for his life. He's not getting the chance to really play well. He's not getting the time he needs to make his throws, read through his progressions, but he's also not being coached up, right? It feels to me, this feels a little bit like the coaching staff putting blame on a young player. And again, this is through my burn orange,
him as the scapegoat,
right? And this is through my burn orange glasses. Admittedly, I will openly say that. But when you compare the discussions and the conversations from the head coaches with like Sark and Venables, when the quarterbacks aren't quite performing exactly where you want them. Look, Sark with Arch last week was very clear. He said, look, man, that's on me. We want to get his pass rate up. We want to, but I need to play call better. I missed some calls where I could have given him an easy opportunity to have quick, fast, easy decisions. And then you get over to the OU side and you look at him saying, hey, this kid just isn't living up. We're pulling him. We don't know who our quarterback is going to be. We're trying out this new kid, right? Like, to me, that feels very different. And it all is based on accountability. And to me, again, through my burn orange glasses, it feels like the Texas coaching staff holds themselves accountable. And I'm not quite seeing that with OU. So is there potential for OU's, new quarterback to come in and have some success? Potential, sure. But I'm not seeing anything from this coaching staff or from this offense that convinces me that replacing one player with another, the system is still broken. The system is still a problem.
The only reason I would say they have more opportunity with Michael Hawkins Jr., the true superstar freshman that's coming in, is because when you have this depleted O-line that's falling apart and can't protect him, and he's taking hits, multiple sacks, and throwing interceptions and fumbling the ball and losing it, when you have someone like Michael Hawkins Jr. who is mobile and can use his feet, and then you have a playmaker, more of a playmaker, that may save them, but a little film on that and you shut that down too.
Right.
So it's going to take time. And like you just said, if they've mismanaged this Jackson Arnold, Dylan Gabriel first, and then the Jackson Arnold, and what makes you think they're not going to mismanage this young Hawkins talent?
Right.
So we have somebody who agrees with you, Megan. Bobby Wood says, I think BV is mismanaging it terribly. So the kid had a bad game against the top 5 SEC team.
Right.
A team that's given up like 0 points, 0 points,
right.
1 3 point, 0 point. Like,
to me, this is pulling him this early. Now, again, we're not in practice, right? Maybe the kid's having really bad practices. Maybe, like you said, the mobility is playing a huge role here. But to me, pulling your young quarterback who hasn't performed quite well behind a bad O-line in a system
against a great team,
against a really good team. Yeah, exactly. You're pulling him now. What's that going to do for his confidence? What's that going to do for his mentality? I don't know. I'm just not convinced this is the right move. I'm not convinced they're handling the situation. Now, again, being the person in burnt orange, I'm living for it. I love it. Keep doing what you're doing, Venables. Keep doing what you're doing. But I just don't see that being managed well.
Here, I have a question for you.
Sure.
If Hawkins turns out, because he is a talent,
Yeah.
and Texas is going to have their hands full if he is as mobile as he looked in high school. If he ends up being the answer and gives Texas a run for their money, goes on to win a game or two that they weren't supposed to win, maybe they thought they weren't going to win if they hung on to
Arnold.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Does it make Venables look like he did the right thing?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Again, we're not in the practices. We're not seeing what they're doing day to day. I will say maybe they know something we don't. I mean, I'm sure they know a lot about their team that we don't. Right now, in the situation that it's in, it feels premature to bench your quarterback. But to this point, he was playing against a good SEC team. And just like we're talking about Texas launching into SEC play, so is OU. And they've got a real tough schedule. So if you're going to make a change, now is the time to do it, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
I just really wonder, again, my question would be more, is it really so much about who the quarterback is themselves if they're in a bad system?
Oh, yeah.
So we'll see how that plays out. Listen, I may eat my words next week.
Well, you know,
Hawkins might be amazing.
The OU fan base is excited about Hawkins. So even though this is what happened when he came in, punt, touchdown, out a turnover on downs, touchdown. So it struggled a bit to get going because it is against the Tennessee defense.
Yeah.
And maybe by the time Tennessee, I didn't watch the end of the game, but maybe by the time the Tennessee had third or fourth players in, he was able to move the ball and get a touchdown, and that had OU fans excited. So their moral victory that they're the next game, and they are favored at Auburn. So what do you think? Are they going to pull it off at Auburn?
Man, I don't know.
I think they are. I think they're going to go in there and win that game. I think, just like Arkansas did.
Yeah, I think Oklahoma will win. That's not saying Oklahoma is a great team right now. I think it's just saying that Auburn's just not that great. Right.
I mean, I told you Arkansas was going to go in there and beat them, and they did.
You did.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of Arkansas,
yeah.
Our next game that we're going to take a look at on ESPN.
Oh, it's a good one.
This one I'm interested in. Arkansas at number 24, Texas A&M. What's the spread on this one?
Our Aggies by 4.
Okay. Who do you have?
This is that neutral side Jerry World game, right?
Right. Yeah. And I will say A&M has been dominant in this series since they've moved this series to Jerry World. I think A&M has won something like 11 games to Arkansas's maybe 2. I'd need to look up those numbers exactly, but I know A&M has owned this series pretty well. So yeah, what are you thinking about this? That's Aggies by, what'd you say, 5? 4.
Okay.
Who do you have in this game?
All right. I picked Arkansas to go in there. Who was the first one I picked? I picked them to go in there and beat somebody. Oh, Oklahoma State. And they went to overtime and didn't pull it off. But then I said they're going to go into Auburn and win, and they did. Arkansas is winning this game.
Okay.
Arkansas is going to go into the Texas game with so much hope and confidence. It's going to be ridiculous when we slaughter them.
Yeah.
When we slaughter the pigs, screaming,
Ooh,
screeching.
I don't know. Those are big words.
I'm saying it now. So Arkansas is going to beat A&M.
Okay. I like that call.
Arkansas has enough offense to.
I had picked A&M at the beginning of this season to go 7-5, which again, not an indictment on Elko. I just
kind of, sort of.
It's not though. It's not because it's his.
It's
his first year.
Yeah.
And every coach needs an opportunity. I mean, we saw it with Sark. We went 5-7 with Sark's first year. If we had ditched him after the first year, 5-7, where would we be now? It's not an indictment on Elko. It's simply stating that A&M's program is not where they feel it should be for paying a coach like Jimbo Fisher, like they did. They should have more talent. They should be a more sound football team, and they're not. So Elko has a difficult task of having to come in, build his team again, a lot like Sark had to do, figure out who your personnel are, figure out where the fundamentals are, where you're lacking. And that first year is a gimme to me. That's just you give them a pass on the first year. They got to get a handle on it. I'm not saying A&M is going to do that with him. In my opinion, though, A&M is a 7-5 team. Now, that was with me going, don't know how I feel about this Arkansas game. That one could go either way for me, and I got hell for it. If Arkansas wins this game, that puts my estimate at Texas A&M being 6-6.
Ooh.
I'm gonna take the Aggies in this.
Why though?
That's a good damn question.
Why Arkansas has a more stable, what do you call it? Not irregular, but an offense that actually is.
I'm going on history. I know I shouldn't. I'm going against what I say I should do. My heart of hearts thinks that Arkansas wins this game, but I'm taking A&M in it because I do think the Aggies. I think they're going to be hyped up enough for this.
Consistent, that's the word.
And they have done well in Jerry World against Arkansas. By the way, do you like college games in NFL stadiums? You a
Sure,
fan?
yeah,
I hate them. I hate
it
them.
doesn't matter to me.
Hate 'em.
I don't care.
I think the atmosphere sucks.
I kind of like. No, I don't want a regular season game to be half and half for me. Other than, I guess you like the.
I like
Cotton Bowl.
OU, but that's different. That's not an NFL stadium.
I know, but it's still half and half. What's the difference?
That I love.
What's the difference?
That I love because
half and half is half and half.
no, because the atmosphere is crazy at OU weekend. Listen, hear me out here. You don't go to OU. I do. I'm there all the time. I know. I'm saying the atmosphere is crazy. People are.
But do you go to the Arkansas A&M game every year? It could be crazy.
It's not though. I've heard from plenty of Aggies going, it's stale. When we played at FedEx against Maryland, it was stale as hell.
Yeah,
it
but
was
that
empty.
was supposed to be their home field.
Right, but it wasn't. We
No.
moved it from Maryland's stadium to FedEx Field.
I know, to accommodate the Longhorns.
Right. Crap.
Yeah.
I wish we hadn't done that.
It was awful.
I'd much rather be in the college stadium. When we played, who was it that we got just our teeth fucking kicked in?
Which one?
Yeah.
UCLA.
at Jerry World.
Jerry World, yeah.
Terrible atmosphere. Lots of Texas fans there.
No, but look at the
Terrible
But
atmosphere.
look at the LSU USC game this year. That was massive atmosphere. People were on their feet the entire game. The game was great.
I
think it can happen.
I just don't think it
but
happens
that's-
often.
But I think that's because it was a one-off game.
Yeah.
And if you have year after year, nobody really cares.
See, and I agree with you, Bobby. Like the pro stadiums aren't as loud. I agree. You seat fewer.
Pro stadiums are meant for luxury and sitting in your seat and putting the app and people bring
Right.
you food.
That's not why I
It's
go to
not
college.
for fighting in the line over beers.
That's what I'm saying. I part of what to me makes college games magical is the atmosphere, the bands and the sound and the fans. You got at DKR, you've got 100,000 strong. You've got all this going on. I just really, really hate games in NFL stadiums. Yeah.
It's the last game in the series.
That's fair.
So Ghost, do you know, are they going now home and away after this last
I
year?
think they're probably
Or they're going to move
renegotiate
it somewhere else. So Jerry will pay whatever it takes to see the Pigs
Yeah.
win.
Look,
Yeah.
in my heart of hearts,
Remember when he wouldn't draft Longhorns?
yeah,
Okay.
in my heart of hearts, I think that Arkansas has what it takes to win this game. I'm gonna pick the Aggies. I guess more just so that we don't have the exact same picks for everything here.
Okay, that's fine.
But I'm gonna take the Aggies here. If the Aggies lose this one, I'm gonna be a pain to deal with. Let's just say that. I'm gonna be insufferable about it.
I already said Arkansas is going to win this
I know you
game.
did.
They have
I
a
know.
more consistent offense.
Yeah.
That is what I meant to say.
That's one I will be interested in watching though.
We'll pick
So.
Texas, Mississippi State, Texas last, but let's just fly through a couple games. Your Michigan State Spartans are
Yeah.
hosting number 3 in the country, Ohio State. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Stanford goes to Clemson, who is now moving along with our Westlake quarterback,
Mm-hmm.
Klebnik. Good with that. All right. The big game of the week, game of
let's
the
talk
week.
about
And
this
let's talk about this because this has massive implications for
Mhm.
our number 1 ranking.
Mhm.
Georgia goes to Alabama. There is Hurricane Helene happening. So everyone in that path for all around Florida, all around the Gulf, my house in Mexico just got some work to it. So everyone just, follow all the advisories, hope you're safe, take care of your homes, take care of your pets, take care of your family.
Yeah.
That affects this game because there's recruits coming, there's, travel, it's coming through Florida, Georgia, all that area.
Mhm.
But let's talk about the actual game. Number 2, Georgia at number 4, Alabama. Let's pick it right now. Georgia's favored by 2 at Alabama.
Yeah.
What do you say, Megan?
Look, I think that what's the spread on this one? This one's pretty close. Right?
Yeah,
You said by 2.
Georgia by
favored
2. Oh, real quick. Ghost says they're going back to home and away for the Arkansas Aggies.
As they should.
As they should.
As
Okay,
they should.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, this one's tough. I'm gonna. All right, Georgia is a phenomenal team. We saw them put up against the ropes by Kentucky, which I think kind of hurt Georgia's ego a little bit, hurt their pride a little bit.
They were overlooking them.
To me, I think that was a bit of a wake-up call. What I will say about this Georgia team that I think has differed from some of the teams of the past, or maybe we just didn't see it as much, this Georgia team doesn't feel as disciplined to me as Georgia teams of the
Is
past.
it all the speeding tickets and arrests? Is it all the being pulled over for reckless, dangerous driving?
Weighs into it a little bit, but it just feels, I don't know if it's an entitlement thing. I don't know if it's a just used to being good thing. I don't know what it is, but this team doesn't feel quite as disciplined as some of the Georgia teams of the past. That being said, I'm going to give some shout outs to DeBoer here, because we said this before the season started. You don't want to be the man following the man, right? Him coming in, of course, when he took over for Saban retires, DeBoer comes in, lost a couple of recruits, but then picked it right back up, picked it up. And then they came in, he picked up the recruiting, started getting that. And all of a sudden, Bama looks like they might not be skipping too many beats, which is a scary thing to me. Credit to where it is due.
I'm going to say they've started off the season even better than last year.
Credit to where it is due. Well, yeah, they didn't play Texas, right? So
that helps. They played Western Kentucky.
Right. So, looking at, I think this is going to be a phenomenal matchup. I think it's going to be a great game. I'm taking Bama in this, and I'm going to take Bama to beat the spread. I mean, obviously they're winning. I think Bama wins by 5 here, by 6.
Well, the spread is Georgia too.
I know.
Yeah.
So I'm saying they win and they will go even more. I think they're going to win by 5 or 6 here. I think this is going to be a great game. But I think especially Bama being at home in Tuscaloosa, they've got a chip on their shoulder. They've got something to prove. And I think while I do believe that game against Kentucky was a wake-up call for Georgia, I just don't know that Georgia is a disciplined enough team right now to go into Tuscaloosa with a hyped up Alabama team and walk away a winner. I'm just not convinced of that.
Right. All right. Before I tell you my pick, do you think if Alabama does beat Georgia by 4 or 5 or 7 or 8, that they pass Texas as the number 1 team in the country?
Yeah, look, I think that's a high possibility. I think several things would have to happen for that. I think Texas would have to stumble a little bit. And by stumble, I mean still win by a lot, but maybe not cover. Or maybe have some question marks, right? That's something we saw with Georgia, Kentucky. Georgia fell a few when they played Kentucky close. They fell a few. They've recovered since then. But in my opinion, for a flip-flop is very possible. This is a better matchup. Georgia, Bama is a better matchup than Texas and Mississippi State. That's just no question there. If whoever wins this game, if they win it convincingly
with a clean
with
game.
a good game, good football, clean football, disciplined football, and they win by a decent amount. Yeah, I think you see them pass Texas for the number 1 spot, which again, fine, who cares? Like, as long as Texas is in that upper, top 5 going through the season, we're fine. I'm not worried about it. But yeah, I mean, I think that's one to watch. All right. Who's your pick for this?
All right. So while I make my pick, let us know your picks for Georgia, Alabama. Georgia is a 2-point favorite. It is at Alabama. It is 6:30 p.m., the primetime ABC Saturday night game. So let's look at this. So I'm looking at Auburn. You said DeBoer with Jalen Milroe. Like, he has him fit. That's the thing about DeBoer, is he knows how to fit his scheme to his personnel.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just like Sark. He will put them in the best position to win and use his talents. Jalen Milroe looks so good.
He does.
I'm surprised he's not getting more Heisman hype. Maybe it's because they played Western Kentucky, South Florida, and at Wisconsin, which lost their quarterback in the first minute, we said. So maybe because it hasn't been as exciting as, Cam Ward or something in Miami.
Yeah.
But they've scored 63, 42, and 42. That's still respectable, no matter who your opponent is.
Absolutely.
And they've only given up a total of 26 points in those 3 games.
Yeah.
So they are a complete team right now. Even though the competition hasn't been great, they are still complete. So, and then you look at Georgia, they barely managed 13 points at a team they were big favorites at Kentucky. Right. Kentucky was able to hold them to 13 points. They won that game by 1 point. But you know what? All you need is 1 point to walk out of there, survive and advance. We talk about this all the time.
Yeah.
Kentucky was going to give Georgia their best game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kentucky's best game effort. My thoughts are Alabama wins this game because they're at home, because they have DeBoer. I feel like DeBoer this is his coming out opportunity, right?
Yeah.
Just like I feel like he's schemed for this game and has a plan for this game, and he is an elite collegiate mind, and he has the talent to go toe-to-toe to Georgia with Georgia. So my thought is Alabama in the 7 to 12 range. More than one possession. So let me say 9 to 12 range. That's where I have Alabama. Big win, statement game for DeBoer.
All right.
Georgia, like you said, I don't know if they're so much undisciplined as they might be a little distracted. And they both had the week off to get refocused. How many arrests did Georgia have this week on the week off? Did they have any?
I don't think they had any.
Oh,
this week. Good
nice.
for them.
Maybe they
Maybe
maybe they
locked in.
kept them on campus. I don't know. Maybe took away their keys, their smartphone keys. I don't know.
Put a boot.
I don't know. Maybe all the kids got booted. Oh,
That's-
parking tickets. Oops. I don't know, but whatever happened, but they kept them out of trouble. Good. I'm glad they kept them out of trouble.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say Alabama because DeBoer, I trust his offensive scheme and his focus. I feel like the team seems pretty focused.
Yeah.
So I'm going.
Alabama big.
I'm going 2-possession win.
All right.
Bama. And I know that's bold to say,
I like it.
especially when Georgia's favorites.
I like
I
it.
would like Georgia to win that game. That way they come to Texas as the number 2 team in the country, maybe number 1 when Texas hosts them in a couple of weeks.
I like it. All right. So that is the end of our picks here.
Yep.
Let's go ahead and pick Texas. Let's pick Texas right now. I feel like let's cap it off. So we know Mississippi State comes in first SEC game. We talked about it at the top of the hour at 3:00. Again, thank you all for joining us. We really appreciate you being here. If this is your first time with us, welcome. We appreciate we invite you to like and subscribe. Again, on YouTube, we are Fire the Cannon Podcast. On Insta and on Twitter, we are Fire the Cannon 1. Please join us. We appreciate you being here. We love hearing your comments. So give us your score predictions for Texas and Mississippi State.
Oh yeah, now's the time.
And now is the
Texas,
time to do it.
Mississippi State score predictions.
Yeah, absolutely. So
The spread.
yeah,
Texas has a 98.1% chance of winning this game. The spread right now is 38.
38 and a half.
It's gone up and down.
Yeah.
Right now it's gone up and down 38 and a half, 37. Right now it looks to be 38. It's going up and down.
Okay.
So around that. Go ahead.
I'm taking Texas. I'm taking cover.
You've picked Texas to cover every week.
And I've been right every week.
Every week they cover.
I've
And
been right
still
every
can't
week.
pick them to
I've
cover.
been right every week too.
With a backup quarterback and no running backs?
When
I'm
the
gonna take
backup
that back. 1.5 running backs?
when the backup quarterback's name is Arch Manning, yes, I think we're all right. I also think, like we talked about a little bit earlier, I think Quinn might see a little bit of playing time here just to knock some of that rust off, keep him good. I know we had a fundamental disagreement about this.
Yeah, you can scroll back. Like when we're done, scroll back and see how we said I don't think Quinn should play.
But
Unless he's really healthy.
either way, I do think Manning gets a vast majority of the snaps in this one.
Mhm.
And I think
Trey Owens getting. I'm just kidding.
well, yeah, I mean, I think we're going to
He'll
see
get some.
Trey Owens. Yeah.
Hopefully.
What I've seen with Texas consistently is even though we've had some issues to clean up on the field,
Mhm.
right? We know that those shooting ourselves in the foot penalties, the false starts, things like that. We've seen them. We've addressed them. It
Right.
feels like anytime we've seen something, we've got to that go, we really need to fix that. Sark sees it. He addresses it. And next week it's cleaned up. So yes, I think the false starts, the silly penalties, the mindless penalties need to be cleaned up. I think something else that we talked about on our podcast on Monday, Texas special teams needs to clean up. It feels like we're just a bit out of position for kicks. We're just not anticipating kicks well. So I think what I'd like to see from Texas is some solid returns where we're getting some yardage out of it, winning the field position battle. I'd like to see some points from returns this game. I think there's an opportunity to do it. Texas has the speed. We've just got to get them in the right position. Again, no chasing down the ball, no running backwards, backpedaling over the shoulder, trying to catch kicks and punts. So if Texas cleans that up, I think Texas wins this. I think they cover easily. I've taken this score and I swear to God, I'm going to hit at some point. I'm going Texas 59. I'm going Mississippi State. Ooh, am I going to give them a touchdown?
0.
Nah. I'll give Mississippi State, 9.
59-9. So you're going to say they're getting field goal range 5 times and they make it 3.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, good. Bobby Wood says, hopefully he's talking about Texas 55-13. You're not giving that to Mississippi State, are you? All right. I'm kind of in that range too. He has a cover.
Is this the week? Is this the week you picked Texas to cover?
No, and I'm going to tell you why.
All right.
It's
lay it on me.
138 is really high for the grind of the SEC.
45 was really high, but
It was, and they covered against one of the worst teams in the country. However, and did you see Paul Feinbaum called Mississippi State the worst team in the country?
I mean, there are some arguments to be made.
Only because there is still a question mark at who is actually playing quarterback tomorrow. All roads are leaning to it being Arch Manning with as soon as possible a Trey Owens dose. The depth, Mississippi State is wide open to run all over. It's our depth at running back.
until we have 3 or 4 deep again. Right now we're at 1.5 deep. I just can't. I don't
Do
know.
you have eligibility left at this point?
You know, we talked about Jackson Arnold's QB rating last weekend was 1.8 or something. I'm like, I think I could go out there and get a 1.8 QBR.
That's rough. All right. So
anyway, okay, I'm gonna say here's my score. I'm kind of okay. Seth K, thanks Seth, 42.9. That's kind of my area too. I'm in the 45-13 range. So similar to Bobby Woods, he's got 10 points more than me. 45-13, 31-32. So just under the cover. I just feel like I don't know how much time.
So you're giving Mississippi State a touchdown.
Yes,
and
right. 2 field goals.
Okay.
You know, their play action, their scheme, they're going to have something up their sleeve.
Lebby is familiar with Texas.
And
if
they can get over the middle on Texas, they will see it and they will take it.
Let me ask you this, and I know what the stadium will sound like if he shows up and if this happens. What's the over-under of Art Briles showing up on the sideline?
I could jump over the rail myself and remove him from that stadium.
Yeah.
He will not.
Yeah, I agree.
He's not welcome.
You remember the debacle in Oklahoma with Lebby bringing Art Briles onto the sideline at OU, and OU had no idea about it until he was on the sideline. It was a big deal.
You know how much it takes to get a pass to get on the sideline? I don't believe no one knew.
I do.
I don't believe no one knew.
I do, because it's kind of a cluster F over there. And it was the people that were assigning the passes for coaches were like, oh, we didn't know about this. Okay, last minute, here you go. We guess. Venables heard about it. Lebby heard about it. I know for
Lebby needs to shut it up. All right.
Anyway.
Okay. Well, the one time that Art Briles showed up on a Tennessee Titans practice sideline.
Oh, he better not show up here.
This was like 5, 6, 7 years ago, whatever it was. How did they even hear about it in Tennessee? Everybody let them know, and they shut it down. They made a statement like,
I don't know that Texas would, even though it would be with Mississippi State. I don't know that Texas would be like, no, we're good.
I mean, even I had to let the Titans know if he's going to be part of the program, I'm out.
Cool. Yeah.
I'm out.
All
right. And he was not. All right. Quickly, NFL, just real quick, and then we get to our fun stories. Dallas at New York tonight. Dallas are actually favored, even though they're stink. They are not looking good. Our teams this weekend, the Saints at the Falcons. That should be interesting. We have Jalen Ford's team going to Bijan's team.
Yeah.
The Jaguars come to the Texans. That is a division game,
yeah,
for the AFC South,
and an opportunity for the Texans to get back on track after that disappointing loss last week.
And Monday night, let's hang out together because my Titans, 0-3, stunk, are going to the Dolphins, and because the Dolphins are the worst team in the country, we're favored by 0.5 points. Half a point.
Look at you.
We're favored by half a point.
Look at you go.
So the Titans might win because the Dolphins don't have a quarterback.
Yeah.
And then the Seahawks go to the Lions. The Seahawks are undefeated.
Yeah, they are.
They are undefeated. They're going to your Lions. The Lions are actually favored by 4.5. So we'll hang out in those and watch those games.
Sounds good.
All right. So let's talk about top stories. And we had Ghost wanted to say, any thoughts on that rumor that Brennan Marion was the one who was making the false NIL promises at UNLV? That is the top story, and we have to talk about it. So if most of you know, UNLV, Brennan Marion, who was the wide receivers coach at Texas, is now at UNLV. He helped, he's recruiting. He brought in QB Matthew Sluka. There was also running back Michael Allen. I don't know if that has to do with Marion or not, but they were promised and told money deals that they didn't get.
The story came out that Matthew Sluka, their quarterback, has decided at this point in the game that he is going to redshirt this season.
And then self-redshirt.
Yeah, he's taken himself out. He's not going to play another game for UNLV.
Right.
And he's going to be transferring.
3-0 UNLV.
Yeah, going to be transferring after this season. His version of the story was that he was promised, and he was tactful with how he said it, but he said that there were certain promises that were made, certain financial promises that were made that were not fulfilled. And because of that, he has decided to redshirt and sit out. Of course, UNLV's collective came back, which is their NIL group, came back and said there was never any formal agreement. Now, to me, language means everything.
That means there was an informal agreement.
My dad's a lawyer. Language matters,
yeah,
right?
it does.
And when you come out and say there was never a formal agreement, you don't use the word formal. You don't have to use the word formal. That's a qualifier.
Mhm.
That changes it, right? So it looks to me now this story gets kind of twisty, right?
Right.
The NCAA, in all of their infinite wisdom, have said that schools cannot use NIL conversations or discussions of money for NIL as part of their recruiting process. Okay. As we understand it, the timeline with Sluka is that he did hire on an agency in January of this year, which is actually Anthony Cromartie's agency, which explains a lot.
So is he gonna have 48 kids soon?
So yeah. So nothing was put in writing because, according to the NCAA rules, and we know this is the workaround, right? You don't put it in writing. You just have the gentleman's handshake, the wink and the nudge. Discussions are there, but it wasn't in writing, which is really what this whole thing is hinging on.
Yeah.
Now, in February, this is interesting to me. In February, a federal judge in Tennessee put an injunction on the NCAA and said the NCAA cannot enforce this no NIL discussions during
Mhm.
recruiting talk, right?
Right.
So had this conversation happened a month later, because again, he hired his agents in early January, maybe mid-January, this injunction happened end of February. If he had made these deals and these agreements and committed after the injunction, you could have gotten it in writing,
Mhm.
but that didn't happen. And what he is saying is that they promised $100,000, which is about the going rate for a quarterback right now.
That's really low for that group of five level. Yes.
Group of five
Yeah,
quarterback.
Yeah.
That's
Group of
about the
five.
going rate.
Yes. Yeah.
And they're saying he has only been paid $3,000. Now,
Like moving expenses or something.
yeah. So this is really interesting to me because right now I'm on Sluka's side. From everything that I understand and looking at the timeline and understanding the rules that were in place at the time that this happened, it seems to me like the kid doesn't have a reason to lie about it. Now, some of the other things that have come out that they've said is, oh, he hired an agent later and the agent has said you're worth more than this and you should bargain. And if they're not going to bargain with you, then you should sit out. If that was the case, that feels a little less cool.
Yeah.
You should always play for your worth and you should get what you're worth.
Yes, but if you
But not in the
made a
middle of the
deal-
season.
Yeah.
Right.
Negotiate again later. That's
Right.
what Stark said today too.
Right. And so, but to me, that's not the case. To me, the way that I understand it, the deals were made. It was a handshake deal, a verbal commitment from the school. And again, when the collective comes in and says, we never had a deal. Well, you're not going to have the deal. It's the coaches that are going to say these things.
It seems reasonable that if Marion was the rep that was a part of his recruitment, like is in charge of his recruitment, and as a wide receiver / part of the offensive coordinating staff, if it was his job to go bring in this quarterback, it seems reasonable that he's allowed to say, okay, $100,000 is what we need to get you
Him
here.
saying that would be the workaround for the rules that were in place at the time. The rules that were in place at the time, the collective itself could not be a part of the discussions. So of course the collective itself,
which is so crazy,
did not have an agreement.
Yeah.
Right. So now that injunction's in place, of course, there's going to be some court rulings over this. We're going to see this play out in the court system as it will, but that's going to be slow. As it stands right now, the NCAA is not allowed to enforce this no NIL discussions in recruiting. That's what the injunction was about. But at the time that this happened, again, to me, this all makes sense. Of course, the collective can say, nope, we didn't have an agreement, a formal agreement.
Right.
Because legally, they couldn't be a part of the conversations at that time.
Right.
What seems very likely to me is that the coaches did promise a number. And because it could not be put on paper because of the rules at the time,
they don't feel they're obligated to it.
They can say, well, I don't know, wasn't me. Afterwards, you got to prove it, right? And if that's the case, then yeah, I think Sluka has every right to say, cool, you didn't follow through what you promised me. I'm not going to work with you.
Yeah.
I mean,
and UNLV is 3-0. He is not only the quarterback, but he is the leading rusher for the team. Like he is,
which says a lot about the team, but yeah.
And I mean, it says a lot about running back Michael Allen, who's also like, peace out.
And that seems to be different. So it seems Michael Allen seems to be that he's not getting the playing time that he wants. And so he's redshirting. Now,
so I have a question for you in this case. So say he is legitimately was promised this amount of money in good faith. They're not paying it. He had maybe other offers or could have gone somewhere else.
Yeah.
He had options if he's a good quarterback.
Yeah.
Does he have those options now if he's considered somebody who would leave his team 3-0 in?
Yeah, I think he still does. I mean, looking at it, there is a lot of, there's some questions about it. But number one, there's always going to be teams that need a quarterback. There's always going to be teams coming after the talent.
Are the new teammates going to be like, dude, you're going to cut out on us if we don't pay you too?
I think if you have the conversation about what really happened, the locker room camaraderie.
Yeah, I think we're in a new era
different.
now where they understand this is a business. It's not show friends, it's show business.
Well,
right?
and that's the thing too. And that's why, going back to Texas, I think it's really incredible in this day and age, the kind of culture that Sark is building.
Right.
It speaks a lot to his character, to the character of the coaches, to how the players that he's picking out and really, again, hand picking that understand it's not just about talent, it's about culture and buying in too. I think that's impressive what Texas has accomplished. But yeah, I mean, listen, I think there's always going to be a market for quarterbacks. I think there's always going to be
everybody
market.
Needs one.
And frankly, when you really get into the details of what happened, it sounds like to me, Sluka is making a smart decision. And to your point, the kids are going to understand that. You wouldn't go to a job that promised you in an interview $100,000 a year and then paid you $3,000 after a month of working there.
Yeah.
Right? That's just, you wouldn't keep doing that. You would probably say, thanks, this job isn't for me.
Yeah.
So, when you look at it through that frame, I take a side. I'm less inclined
I don't
to be on the side of the running.
I don't blame him. If you made a promise to me to pay me and I'm working for free, I'm out, right?
Yeah.
I completely understand that. I'm also just thinking like all the different angles that people might view that.
Oh,
right?
agreed. I'm less inclined to be empathetic to the running back, Michael Allen, in his situation because he's not getting played the way he wants to.
Well, if you're not the leading rusher and your quarterback is, obviously there's something else. All right. Just UNLV is getting a lot of attention for that right now.
Yeah.
Okay, let's cover a couple more things because we're getting low on time.
Yeah.
All right. This is pretty sweet. T.I., this is kind of sports related. It's at the Falcons game. T.I., everybody knows T.I., and this is his super cute daughter. And watch this, they're performing at the Oh, it's so cute. T.I.'s like, and then he comes and he's like hyping her up and she's singing the Rihanna part.
That was a girl dad
so
right there.
cute. Girl dad.
Yeah.
How cute is that? Like,
I love it.
I love it.
All right. So I did want to show this too, if you guys haven't seen this. Scotty Scheffler.
Yes.
A lot of folks out to get him. We know Texas Longhorn.
Well, he's the best in the world.
Best in the world. We're going to let this play out and see what y'all think.
All right.
But not here. Tom Kim said he wanted Scheffler. He wanted to take him down. What a great putt. This is what we need. We need that crowd to get involved. And to answer, Scheffler.
What was that?
He was sorry.
What's that? I love it. Listen,
I love when they have to tone down how hyped they are on the golf course. But that shot when that dude was like, yeah, and they're like,
that's the thing. He had apparently been like saying that he wanted Scheffler, that he was going to take, like he'd been trash talking the whole game. And so Scheffler, of course, comes up, answers, and he's like, "Sup, bitch, I got you." I love that. It's kind of a Happy Gilmore moment.
That was pretty great. I like that. All right, this is our little top stories, kind of fun, throwing all the good stuff. I want to show you this because this came across our timeline and I don't remember who posted it, maybe CB, but Minister of Culture. You can't talk Texas Longhorns without talking sometimes about the Minister of Culture, Matthew McConaughey. And can I make a confession?
Sure.
I've never seen Dazed and Confused.
Really?
Never.
Okay.
And don't tell me I need to watch. I'm sure I'll watch it at some point in my life.
I'm just going to say you do this cool thing with Nadia with her movie education.
Yeah.
Maybe that would be my movie education gift to you is Dazed and Confused.
Okay. All right. Anyway, this is Matthew McConaughey's audition. If you've read the Green Lights book, if you haven't read it, it's so good. His life story book. And he talks about how this audition came to be. So reading the book and then seeing the audition, maybe now I should watch the movie. But I'll just show you a few seconds of his audition from 1993.
The weed leads you toward him.
Well, from the top?
Yeah.
Hey man, whose car is this?
You know Bobby?
Hey, man.
Hey, what's up? How's it going?
Say, man, you got a joint?
No, you want?
It'd be a lot cooler if you did.
It'd be a lot cooler. I know
Now
the line.
famous line, yeah.
And the way he made up, you have to go read the book. I won't ruin it. Go read the Green Lights book, and he explains how he came up with the phrase "all right, all right, all right." I'm not going to ruin it, but he's just so clever, and now it's become like Texas
The catchphrase,
icon.
yeah.
All right, all right, all right. It's
Yeah.
like legendary with the University of Texas. But how he came up with that in that little diner on North Burnett Road, you know, for that movie, fantastic.
I love it.
The minister of culture.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, y'all. Well, we appreciate it. That is our time for today. Again, if you have not done so yet, please like and subscribe. Again, on YouTube, we are Fire the Cannon Podcast. On Insta and X or Twitter, I'm still a Twitter person myself. It is at Fire the Cannon 1, just the number 1. For now, I'm Megan.
I'm Rocky. And Seth, I saw your question. Let's talk about it at the tailgate.
Yeah, and we are Fire the Cannon. Welcome.